is Wednesday, August 12th, 2026. Mute myself here. It is 6:30 and this meeting of the Montpelier City Council is called to order. Before we get down to business, I'd like to offer everybody a chance to come fully into the room. If you'd like to join me, I'm going to put both of my feet flat on the floor, take a few deep breaths in and out, and then I'm going to read a little something. The passage tonight is from The Measure of Our Success, A Letter to My Children and Yours from 1993 by Marian Wright Edelman. I was brought to this because yesterday we just had primary elections. Tonight we have 4 people who have raised their hand, willing to volunteer their time and their service to fill the seat that Adrian Gill has left vacant between now and town meeting day. And I just felt really grateful and inspired by people's willingness to serve, willingness to step up and spend their energy for the good of the greater community. And so this passage seemed appropriate. I was taught that the world had a lot of problems, that I could struggle and change them, that intellectual and material gifts brought the privilege and responsibility of sharing with others less fortunate, and that service is the rent each of us pays for our living, the very purpose of life, and not something you do in your spare time or after you have reached your personal goals. At 6:33, we're going to move on to item 2, the meeting logistics and remote introductions. Please display your first and last name if you are joining us remotely. When you're speaking, either here or on Zoom, please state your name and where you live. Please keep your comments to the allotted time so that others have the opportunity to speak. If you have several questions, please ask them all together. Please focus your comments on the agenda item under discussion. Please direct your remarks towards policies, decisions, and ideas, and not individuals. Avoid comments about a person's character or intent. Please wait to be recognized by the mayor before speaking. That's me. And please follow the rules of procedure included in the agenda packet, which guide how the meeting is conducted and may be applied as needed to maintain orderly discussion. And with that, at 6:34, we're moving on to approving the agenda. Does anyone have any changes? Oh, I'm sorry. Before we have another piece of business. We have 2 people joining us, 2 counselors joining us from not online. Counselor Doyle, will you just say your name? And
Ben Doyle, District 1.
Thank you. And Counselor Brown.
Carrie Brown, District 3.
All right, thanks. And John, do you have a sense of where that piece of business should fall? Is this the right spot?
The remote introduction.
Your remote introductions.
Should be, yeah, like first name before you do.
Okay, all right, thanks. Anyway, it's done now. All right, so does anyone wish to change the agenda or modify it in any way? Okay, seeing no objection, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. It is now at 6:35. We're going to move on to recognizing downtown business achievements. Just want to remind us that I think it was the last meeting when we just sort of gave a shout out to a national award that was granted to the Quirky Pet, which is one of our businesses, and we're proud of our businesses and we're grateful for everyone's contributions towards maintaining a vibrant and alive downtown. And so in a similar fashion, the 7 Daisies Awards have just come out. And for those of you who don't know, 7 Days Awards, these sort of statewide best of category awards each year. And this year, Hunger Mountain Co-op, Red Hen Baking, Bar Hill, Capitol Grounds, Artisans Handcraft Gallery, Capitol Cannabis, Onion River Outdoors, and East Rise Credit Union all garnered 7 Daisies. So we just want to applaud them and thank them for their continued work. And while we're at it, I want to recognize that we had 2 new businesses open this week. That's Vulcan Gym, and tomorrow I think there's a ribbon cutting for Cornerstone Caregiving. And it just reminds me that whatever else is happening in our town, is continuing to grow. People are investing their energy and their time in our downtown. And thank you to all of those businesses for your ongoing work in keeping our downtown vibrant and healthy. Okay. Any comment or discussion on that item? Wow, we are cooking along. At 6:36, rules of procedure. There may be a decision available to us tonight. At this time, do you want to tee this up for us, Manager Curry? Thank you.
Yeah, council has had several conversations related to finalizing your rules of procedure. These rules are required under Vermont's open meetings law, as well as the city charter, which set forth your meeting norms and expectations around agendas, public participation, conduct at meetings, et cetera. You made some changes in June relative to shifting how public comment would be managed at these meetings, and that opened up a discussion about the greater rules and aligning them with the practices that you have had in place but have not formalized. And so this has had several renditions of drafts, and now in front of you is another round of proposed edits. Each time we get fewer and fewer edits and fewer elements of discussion. And so what is in the packet tonight is an addition of a line calling out that council is able to go into executive session, as allowable by law at any time without prior notice on the agenda if necessary. And also giving the mayor some additional discretion around orders of items, lengths of public comment times built into the agenda as well. And Councilor Brown submitted the last round of edits, so I will turn it over to her to see if there's anything specific she would like to call out, and then turn it back to the mayor for discussion.
Go ahead, Councilor Brown.
All right, thank you very much. The edits that I made were primarily focused on expanding the opportunities for the mayor to have some discretion over timing and when things happen, how long they take, and that kind of thing. Since we can only predict so much how a meeting will go, and there may be times when we need to allow public comment on things that we haven't necessarily specified ahead of time we would, or times when public comment needs to be curtailed or rearranged or rescheduled or something like that. So it's not to give the chair the power to do away with public comment, but just to have a little bit of discretion about how to manage it throughout the meeting based on how the meeting is going.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions from council on this? No? Okay. Then we will open this for public comment. I'd remind everyone that on agenda items, we're allowing for 2 minutes of public comment. General business and appearances, which will be roughly 8:30, we hope. That everyone will have 5 minutes to speak on any topic they choose. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this topic at this time? Mr. Whitaker.
Steve Whitaker, Montpelier. I'll again correct the mayor that the last vote of the council made the timing on agenda topics 3 minutes. And you've been notified of that numerous times, and you continue to attempt to shrink it to 2 minutes. And that's not your prerogative, at least not yet. So it's indicative of the problem we're going here. We've been shutting down our city offices. We're shutting down our public comment time. We're basically going into a fortress mode of quelling dissent and the rampant dishonesty that's going on, which I will address at the general businesses and appearance. But my point is that you're going in the wrong direction, and you're doing it with ill motives. And I'm still quite upset that you put the tasers on the consent agenda so there could be no discussion, even after I shared with some of you the whole history of 2011, where we convened a committee and spent 6 months and decided those are not for us. And then without a steady police chief, without a resigning council person, y'all put that on the agenda so that there could be no public comment on it. And that's sleazy. That's just really sleazy. So I don't think I'm going to convince anybody here not to adopt these tightening rules or to create might convince you to create a subcommittee and look at other examples and how this is being subtly manipulated by a new city manager and mayor to close down and constrain democracy and transparency. That's probably the right thing to do, but I hold little faith.
Thank you for your comments. I reject that characterization. Nevertheless, it is your right to express it. I would ask everyone to remember, please, if you can at all, avoid comments about a person's character or intent. Those are things that none of us knows about each other. Mr. Casey.
Mayor, Council, thanks very much for having us today. I'm Connor Casey, State Rep for Montpelier. I think it's relevant to this agenda item. I'd like to address, there was an allegation against me in today's council packet, an email from Peter Kelman to the mayor and the council, which is unmistakably referencing me. It does say that, unfortunately, this is referring to the responsible contractor ordinance, which we'll discuss later. Unfortunately, the proposal was pushed through without adequate study by a brand new city councilor with very strong ties to construction unions, and in exchange for their support for him when he later ran for higher office.
I'm sorry, Mr. Casey, is this relevant to the rules of procedure agenda item? Or
It's related to it because, just as you were saying, Mayor, when you try to slander somebody in public, I think we could be better than that. And, I'd like to just take a minute if you don't mind. And
I will allow it, but I would ask you first, is this maybe better suited for general business and appearances, during which you would have more time?
I think it does queue up for the discussion later on responsible contractor. I'd like to have it beforehand, if you don't mind.
If that's okay, I would ask you to just wait until general business and appearances. We should be getting there relatively soon.
No problem.
I do appreciate your
Please.
patience
Yeah.
and understanding. Thank you. I hate to ask you to wait, but we have to apply the rules evenly. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on this agenda item, which is the rules of procedure that we are attempting to adopt? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak to this topic? Okay. With that, and with all due respect, I will close public comment on this agenda item, and we will revisit the others coming up very soon. Is there a motion to either adopt this or punt it down the road? Councilor Brown?
Yeah, I'm just noticing by Representative Casey's action right now that this is a reminder that sometimes the timing of general business and appearances, based on when other things happen in the agenda, might not line up particularly well. If someone wants to make a comment on something on the agenda that happens before the break, before we do general business and appearances, then it seems kind of moot at that point. So that is part of why one of the suggestions I made was that the chair will have discretion to move the break, although that's actually doesn't really address my concern, come to think of it. I didn't want to lock us into a break at 8:30 because we might start earlier or later. We might need to take a break earlier or later. But I'm not super thrilled with having the general comment at general business and appearances happen only at the break. And so that's why I put in giving the chair the discretion to make adjustments to that timing. That's it.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll say that what I said last time, which was that having a set of rules that we all agree upon, to me, feels like the main priority here. If it is not a perfect set of rules, it can be amended at any time in the future, but it gives us a common understanding from which to work. And the idea of moving general business and appearances to later is a somewhat experimental move. We're trying it out for a number of meetings to see how it goes. And we may find that we don't love it, and we may find that we do love it. So what we have before us at this time is to either adopt the language as presented or to amend it, which would bring it back in the future unless someone has specific amendment language to propose right now. Counselor Doyle?
I make a motion that we approve the rules of procedure as proposed.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Counselor Brown, your hand was still up. Was that just a? Okay.
I took it down.
Is there discussion or debate on the motion? The motion is to accept the rules of procedure as presented. No discussion. At that time, we'll take a vote. All in favor of adopting these rules as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous. That's 5 ayes. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, it's unanimous, the 5 ayes. That carries. Thank you very much. We'll move now on to item number 6, which is the responsible employer ordinance, and we will take public comment on this. Before we do this, Manager Curry, would you tee it up for us? We'll then take clarifying questions, and then we'll open up for public comments.
Yes, so we brought, and I'll invite Kurt Modica, our Public Works Director, to come up in case there are any questions for him. We brought this forward to you for discussion at the July 22nd meeting because 2 years ago, this ordinance had been adopted in 2019. 2 years ago, it was put on a pause. That suspension was set to expire in October of this year. And so we brought the item back to council for discussion about whether you wanted to enforce, amend, repeal this ordinance. And so at that discussion, we presented information about the administrative nature and requirements of the ordinance, compared wages for the wage standard that the ordinance set with staff who do similar jobs in our Public Works Department, as well as some information about costs for projects above $200,000 and how this ordinance was expected to affect them. At that time, you directed us to bring this back for a repeal. Because this is held as an ordinance in the city code, we treat it with 2 readings and 2 public hearings in order to enact the repeal of that ordinance. And that is what's brought before you today. So it is noticed for a first reading and public hearing. If you wish to move it forward, it would go to a second reading and public hearing at the next council meeting on August 26th.
Okay, are there any clarifying questions from council members before we open for public comment? Seeing none. Mr. Modica, do you have anything to add to that before we open up?
No, I think that's a great summary.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak to this? Oh, we'll open the public hearing at this time. Thank you, John. Mr. Casey, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll get to the other issue later, I guess, but yeah, I wouldn't mind saying a few words about this. Again, thanks so much for having me, everybody. Connor Casey, State Representative from Montpelier. I was also the councillor who introduced this ordinance a few years ago, so probably no surprise that I'm speaking on it today. But I'd also like to speak as a member of the House Institutions Committee, which oversees the $200 million capital construction budget for the state, which does include prevailing wage. And, you know, as part of my committee, we spend a great deal of time overseeing the state construction projects. So I want to start with something pretty simple. You know, I think requiring responsible wages and responsible employment practices on taxpayer-funded projects, it's not a radical concept. Like it really isn't. It's a standard practice in state government and something that's occurred for a long time, with an arrangement between labor and the associated general contractors who agree on these prevailing wages. So I think we need to ask, why should someone building a state facility in Montpelier be protected by one standard, while someone doing essentially the exact same work on a city project be protected by another? To me, it's absurd. You could have 2 sites side by side with completely different standards, completely different wages being paid. And I like to think, as a capital city, we should be the standard bearer for responsible contracting, treating employees well, and not do the bare minimum, not go below the state standard. And I get it. The argument for the repeal seems to be largely focused on cost, from what I heard from the last hearing there. And that's a concern. We're all stewards of taxpayer money, and we need to take that seriously. But labor, a cost to be driven, it shouldn't be a cost that's driven as low as possible. It's people building our roads, it's people laying our water lines and rebuilding our public buildings after the flood. And they should be able to afford to live in the communities that they work in. Like a few years ago, when we had this hearing, you had a lot of frontline workers come in and they said, you know what, Jesus, I love coming to Montpelier every day. I love working in Montpelier. But the sad thing is, I'm never going to make enough money to afford to live here. So whether it be service workers or the people who are literally building the city that we live in, we shouldn't send them home at the end of a workday and say, you know what, you'll never afford to live here. And this ordinance isn't just about wages. It's workers' compensation coverage. It requires contractors to follow the law. And we need to be diligent about this because there's a myriad of abuses going on in this industry right now. It requires workers to be properly classified as employees rather than independent contractors. And misclassification is a huge problem in the industry. And I'm sure it's happening in the shadows here that we don't see, but could see with this ordinance. So it's not fair to workers. It's not fair it's not fair to taxpayers, honestly. So I think AFL is going to talk about this a little bit. I could ramble on forever on it. But I really think, if you could pivot from a repeal to an amendment on this, reasonable people could work together to work out the logistics of the burdensome paperwork that I heard was mentioned there, and try to find something that works for everybody. But just repealing this sends a terrible message to everybody. Burlington's passed this, Barry's passed it. We were the first ones, and we were proud of that. We should follow suit here.
Okay, thank you very
Thanks,
much,
Mayor.
Mr.
Yeah.
Casey. Mr. Bellini, go ahead. And Mr. Casey was afforded 3 minutes just now, so I'll extend that evenly to everyone on this topic. Mr. Bellini, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hey, everybody, I'm Dave Bellini. Good to see everybody. I do not know the language of what you are talking about. I did get the gist of it before, and I do understand the basic concept of it. I've been in unions my whole life. I'd like to offer what I think would be a good compromise for everybody, which is the cost before implementation. I mean, $200,000. I mean, you can't even buy coffee for a crew from Starbucks for $200,000. Maybe go with what Connor says, whatever the gist of that is, but $200,000 is nothing in 2026. Maybe raise, $200,000. I don't know if that does one street. I mean, if you're paving Interstate 90, that's one thing, but $200,000 for a triggering mechanism, maybe the compromise is to make that a little higher. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bellini. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak? Mr. Whitaker?
I won't need all my 3 minutes. Steve Whitaker again. I'm gonna honor a change of mind, to try to set an example for some of y'all, that I spoke last time for repealing this because it needs work, but I'd like you to consider not repealing it and start doing the work that needs to be done to find the solution for the smaller contractors. If it means finding an app for a tablet that makes it easy to do the accounting of what task order or wage scale certain functions are done at, there are solutions to the problems that I raised. But I'm persuaded by both Connor and Carrie's concern here, and especially the parity with the state capital bill expenditures. Why would we want to have two different wage scales in the capital city where much of the capital complex is, most of the entire Capitol complex is, and much work is gonna be done up there. And then we'll be losing the level playing field for contractors if we're allowing a disparate, if we could be cannibalizing at the expense of the workers, cannibalizing the available contractors to work on the State House addition or renovation that they're about to do. So I'm changing my point of view and my advice from last time I spoke on this to say that we should just maybe suspend the ordinance for another 6 months and do the work to find the solution that brings everybody up to the same parity level of costs of wages and benefits. This idea that we're giving away Country Club Road to a developer as our only hope of getting housing that's affordable to the wage earners here in town is damn near criminal. And I'll pursue every angle on that. But if we want to look for the money that we need to pay the prevailing wage, let's look at the sidewalk project we just wasted doing entirely properly by letting the Parks Department, instead of our new approved sidewalk vendor that's in the packet tonight, letting the Parks Department ruin a whole section of sidewalk. They had no idea what they were doing, and it's a huge mess. It needs to be redone. It also wasn't packed properly so that next settling flood, paving not pitched on School Street towards 2 of the storm drains, a survey that needs to get redone for East State Street.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. You're at time.
At 3 minutes or
Yeah,
2?
sir. At 3 minutes. Thank you.
Glad you wanted to hear it.
Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak?
I don't know if I can hand this to you. There's one for all of you.
You may, yes, thank you. Thank you for asking too. I appreciate that. Start with your name.
Yep. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. My name's Larry Moquin. I am the president of the Vermont AFL-CIO. I serve as the vice president of the Building and Construction Trades Council in Vermont, and I'm business manager for my local union, which is the laborers. I was part of this ordinance when it was passed in 2019, and I think I sent you guys some stuff today that you probably were able to look at, but I think that repealing it outright would be a disservice to your taxpayers. You guys set the example in 2019, and we don't want you to set an example. I read through the report done by the city manager, and for some things, like the wages of what you start your employees may be less, but the crews that will be doing this work may have 10, 15, 20 years experience. So it's not apples to apples when you think about things like this. Providing benefits, according to most towns, is important for your personal employees. So to do it for your contracted employees seems a little also counterintuitive. You guys say that the priority of the council is to invest in infrastructure, but when is human infrastructure taken into consideration? The people that make this town go, besides your highway works department, your parks, are all these workers that work for the owners. And I'd like to know how many projects this was actually used on. It would be interesting to see, because we have one example of a 10% increase on one project. How many bidders? The AGC supports these wages and benefits, which is the largest contractor base in the state. My union wages are probably close to $20 an hour different, and we're the base laborer. So this ordinance was not at all to help union contractors. This ordinance was strictly to help the workers in the state, because without the unions, there would be no uplifting for any workers. So I just would love to be able to work with you all on amending this and understanding where this came from, aside from just the cost savings off the workers, because those are the people who spend money in the community, which gives you those tax dollars to fund these projects. So the more money put into those workers' pockets is the more money that's going to be spent locally to make the city thrive. I thank you for your time, and if you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muckwin. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on this topic? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on this topic? Mr. Kelman, you'll have 3 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Peter Kelman, Montpelier. Let me just be clear on the outset that I'm neither anti-union nor am I opposed to Montpelier adopting a carefully considered, data-driven, appropriately designed, and clearly worded responsible employer ordinance. That said, the currently suspended ordinance does not, nor has it ever met these criteria. Let me cite just a few of the major failings. It addresses only city construction contractors and their employees, whereas if it's going to be equitable, it should probably also address all or most city contractors and subcontractors, as well as the city itself and its employees. If this isn't done, I won't go into it, but this creates a real uneven playing field. Number two, its extensive compliance reporting requirements are cumbersome, costly, and don't allow for waivers. This is in marked contrast to the only other such ordinances in Vermont, Burlington and Barry. Barry has, in every case, waived the requirement for their projects. The result is, as we've heard, just some contractors are discouraged from applying, and others raise the costs, and the raising costs do not go to the workers, believe me. Third, the goals of this ordinance, and I think you could already hear this from what both Connor said and what the union rep just said. This ordinance from the outset was meant really to be more symbolic than real. And as most full-time skilled construction workers already make this amount, as the union guy pointed out. The point was actually for Montpelier to lead the way, to encourage other cities and towns to follow its example. Not only has that not happened, but that is really, I think, arrogance. We don't lead the way. That's not what we really do. Finally, the ordinance was not a, quote, collaborative effort between the city and Vermont's labor community, as claimed by J.P. Isabel, the executive director of the Vermont AFL-CIO, in his memo to Kelly. Rather, it was written by a single city council member working very closely with AFL-CIO staff. No other stakeholders were involved or even consulted. So it's beyond ironic that Mr. Isabel now complains that the union wasn't consulted before considering repeal. For all these reasons and more, I strongly urge the city council to repeal the current ordinance and then direct the city manager convene an ad hoc committee of stakeholders, including the unions, of course, but also including others who might be inadvertently harmed by it, to explore the entire topic and return to the city council with its recommendations for a truly responsible employer ordinance. As the chair of the CJAC, the Social and Economic Justice Advisory Committee, back when this was originally proposed to us, brought to us by Connor, we expressed a whole number of concerns about this and proposed to him that this be worked out in this way. But instead, he went ahead and did it and brought in dozens of union reps.
Thank you, Mr. Kelman. Is there anyone else online that would like to speak? We have someone else here in the room who would like to speak. Please come forth and state your name. I would introduce you, but I don't know your name.
All right. My name's JP Isabel. Mr. Kelman just took my name in vain, which is, I guess, his prerogative. I'm not sure why. Yes, I did write a letter. I asked this council to consider working with us. That letter was actually before I sent before the previous meeting when this first discussion came up. Maybe Mr. Kelman didn't know that. And maybe Mr. Kelman should perhaps read the rules of engagement and perhaps think about making arguments without attacking people. It seems to me that seems to be an issue that he has, and I would hope that he can address that with some work on himself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment at this time? Okay, I would just like to bring us back into the room. Let's all take a breath for a moment. The conversation tonight is a first hearing on whether to repeal a document. We are not, as far as I see, currently debating for the soul of Montpelier and whether or not we are pro-worker, pro-union, anti-worker, anti-union, whether we're fiscally conservative or, and I don't believe that all of those things are on the table here tonight. Really what we as a council want to do tonight is either move this to a second hearing, take the opportunity to learn more, or not move it to a second hearing. I believe that those are the options that we have, just to keep it kind of technical and narrow. Having said that, are there other questions or comments from council now that we've heard some comments from the public? And I do want to thank everybody who came to speak. Know that you were heard. None of this is the council trying to screw workers, right? That's not the conversation we're having, but it's a very passionate topic for a lot of us. I myself have been a union member most of my life as well. And anyway, I'll stop talking now. Is there anything else from council? At this time, we'll officially close this first hearing on this topic, the public hearing. Is there comment, questions from council before we entertain a motion to advance this to a second hearing or something else? Wow, everybody's so quiet tonight. Jim, sorry, Councilor Sheridan.
I'll advance it to the second hearing.
Okay, we have a motion to advance it to the second hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Cohn seconds. Councilor Brown? Oh, at this time, we'll have discussion and debate on the topic.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, just before you begin. Of course, councilors say whatever you like. The motion is to advance to a second hearing, but go ahead, say whatever you like.
That is what I intended to speak on. Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, thank you. I'm not trying to control what you say. You're a counselor. Go ahead.
I am not in favor of advancing this to a second hearing. I'm not in favor of repealing this ordinance. I want to keep it, and I want to try to work on it and fix it and make it workable for both the city and the city's budget and workers, and general justice and fairness and support of working people in our community. So I wanted to make a couple of points in response to some of the things that I've heard in this discussion so far. The idea that Montpelier is some kind of an outlier by being the first to do this, and only Barrie and Burlington do this. Well, the state actually does this as well. So does the federal government. We are not outliers. We are just trying to bring ourselves into alignment with the other two major employers of contracts on construction work. The reason why this is construction and not everything else, it would be great if it were everything else, but it's construction because that aligns with what the state is already doing and with what the federal government is already doing. So it's just a nice kind of clean alignment with what's already required. So contractors that are coming to us to submitting bids, many of them have experience with working for the state where they have had to comply with these requirements. Although at the state, it's not a $200,000 contract that triggers the need to pay prevailing wage. It's a $100,000 contract. So we're much laxer than the state is on this currently. And the idea that this is somehow symbolic, because the contractors are already paying prevailing wage, if that were the case, we wouldn't even be here now. We wouldn't be having this conversation. It would never have come to us. But the fact is that the problem that Montpelier is facing is that we're trying to solicit bids and from contractors, and the prices that they're coming back with, if they were to comply with this ordinance, are higher than the city budget allows to be paid. So this is a problem with our overall budgeting and our overall planning for how to pay to get the work done. And this really ties in with the fact that we're not always paying our own employees the prevailing wage for this work. Because again, we haven't really committed as a city to pay the prevailing wage, which I said before, and I'm going to say it again, is the average wage. We're not talking about livable wage. We're not talking about a high wage. We're just talking about average. So it does feel to me a bit hypocritical to demand from our contractors that they pay the average wage if we're not paying our own employees for the same kinds of work an average wage. I also recognize that the administrative burden of having to report every single hour is, I believe it if contractors tell us that it's too high. If you look at the comparable state statute, the state requirement isn't, they don't ask for that. The state just says, promise us, sign an affidavit, pledge in your bid for doing this work that you will abide by these requirements. The state doesn't demand that the contractors fill out weekly timesheets and account for every single hour. So I don't think we need to either. I think that we could simplify this ordinance so that it looked a lot more like the state's. The state law is very simple and clear compared to what we have. We could really shrink ours down to match theirs, with the exception that instead of $100,000 that triggers the state requirement, that it's $200,000 for us. So it's a little easier for us to meet. And so I would much rather see an amendment of this ordinance that makes us consistent, where we're matching kind of what the state is requiring. And then we're also saying that we need to pay our own employees this much. And what I'd love to see is that we continue this pause for another year or for another 2 years, and then we come back and we reevaluate. And if we're paying our own employees the prevailing wage at that point, then we can, without any hypocrisy, demand that of our contractors. But just repealing it right now says we don't really think it's that important to even pay average wages. That we just, yeah, and I'm pretty uncomfortable with that.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Cohn.
So I have a question to Kurt and Kelly. What does it stop us to follow the state law if it is already there? Why do we need an ordinance? Why we cannot just follow the state law and do the same thing? Thank you.
It's not currently part of our procurement policy, which drives decisions about how we enter in, go out and request proposals and enter into contracts. So that would be a void when this is repealed. We would rely solely on what the procurement policy currently says.
Yeah, thank you.
And of course, when we have grants that place requirements on us, we follow those grant requirements, which in the case of federal monies is sometimes directs how, we can purchase things, contractors that we can work with, those sorts of standards as well.
Mr. Monica, anything to add to that?
Yeah, like Kelly said, our grants are primarily through the federal government, and those require us to follow Davis-Bacon rates as opposed to state prevailing wage rates, which are different. So one of the issues with the ordinance is that there's no provisions written in there for when grant requirements require Davis-Bacon rates, that we're able to revert to those. We have been, just in order to comply with the grants, but it's not necessarily consistent with the way the ordinance is written. So, that's just one of the changes that would be important to make in this, so that we don't jeopardize our federal funding opportunities.
Are you suggesting that sometimes the federal requirements would require us to would require people to be paid less than if we followed the state guidelines or if we followed our own ordinance. Is that what I'm understanding?
Not necessarily less, maybe in some cases under some certain classifications of work. So the way these wage rates work is that you get paid depending on the type of work you're doing. So if you're paving, you get one rate. If you're doing concrete work, you get paid a different rate. And they're different. Some are higher in federal rates, some are higher in state rates. It's not all consistently higher or lower. So that it's just, we just, under the way the ordinance is written, it's not explicit that we're able to use federal rates when the grant requirements require that. But it's not necessarily higher or lower. It changes, and it changes every year. There's a new rates published every year that are adopted for both state and federal rates.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Counselor Alfano?
Just want to make sure I understand what you just said. So we might have a federal project that requires Davis-Bacon, and because the rates change, our ordinance may require us to pay a lower rate than Davis-Bacon. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, that's possible in some cases, but if we were not using Davis-Bacon rates under a federal grant project that required Davis-Bacon, we followed our ordinance, which says just state prevailing wage rates, we'd lose our funding. So that's the bigger issue for me, is that the ordinance doesn't allow for, like I said, in practice, we have had to do Davis-Bacon rates on projects over $200,000 in order to maintain our funding.
So Davis-Bacon would have to override.
It would have to
the
override.
ordinance, and the ordinance doesn't allow for that.
That's
right now.
correct. Yep.
Mhm.
And it's not really a matter of higher or lower, because
Right.
it depends on the
Could
classification
vary.
of labor and what,
Yeah.
what that average is, for federal versus state wages. And it changes every year, so it's a moving target.
I have another question just about timing. What's the status of the ordinance now? Currently, it's still paused, or is it
Yes, it's suspended until October currently.
suspended until October? So if we extend this to a second hearing to get more input, we can still make a decision to not repeal, to postpone, to pause again. I mean,
Yes.
okay.
So really tonight is, because it's repealing of an ordinance, and I have questions about whether this should be an ordinance or a policy, and that's wonky, but I have my own questions about that. But narrowly, what we're doing tonight is either moving it to a second hearing. It will give us another 2 weeks to learn more about all of the varying opinions on the subject. And then we as a council would either repeal, which is the motion that we're having a hearing about, or not repeal and choose to do something else. Those options are still available to us. In any case, the cliff, so to speak, if there is one for this, is that in October, if we do nothing at all, then this policy will go into force in October. And so as we had the options at the last meeting to either renew the postponement, repeal the thing, amend the thing, or do nothing, which in effect allows it to go into effect in October. Right. So those were the four choices. There was a motion made to repeal. We're here at our first hearing. If there are no other discussion or debate top points to be made here, then we'll call the question. We're right at about that. We're a little bit past the time that we'd had allotted for this. Is there anyone else that would like to make a statement about this specific motion or this topic generally before we call the question? Yes, Manager Curry.
I just would request, if there is specific information that you would like brought back before second reading, you don't have to know that right now, but please give me a heads up in the next week, and so we can otherwise prepare answers for you.
Okay. Councilor Alfano.
Just one more follow-up question. If we have a second hearing and next meeting decide to pause to establish a working group to work on this, to iron out the issues that we've addressed, that we identified, is that I mean, that's a legitimate choice that we can make at the next.
Yep, none of your options are foreclosed at this point.
If we should theoretically at the next meeting say, oh, we're not going to repeal, we're going to amend, or we're going to do something else, are we then required to hold 2 hearings on
That was my
that
ne-
motion?
That was my next follow, yeah.
Trying to get a sense of our timeline.
Sure. So the clerk and I have had conversations about this. There's nothing that requires you to have a 2 reading hearing on an ordinance, either in our charter or in Vermont statute. It has been the practice of Montpelier City Council to do so. So because this has, held as an ordinance in the city code, we are following that practice here. Now, my recommendation would be if you are substantially changing your decision from one hearing to another, you would do another hearing. So you would have 2 public hearings on the decision that you are moving forward. Right now, that is a repeal. If you decide to substantially change that at the next, then you would do a 3rd public hearing on that, would be my recommendation in alignment with your practice. Again, this is not required. It is your norm over many decades, as I understand it. It also, in the future, would be brought forward as an internally focused policy, perhaps as an addendum to the procurement policy, as opposed to its own standalone ordinance, would be an additional recommendation on process for this type of item.
Does that answer your questions,
It
Councilor?
does, thank you.
Okay, so then my question about ordinance versus policy, an ordinance is enforceable by some type of punishment, fines, imprisonment, whatever, correct? Is there a situation in which, because this is written as an ordinance, that this would be enforceable through those means, or would the intent of this ordinance be better served as being policy? That's a question I would actually invite Mr. Casey to answer that question, if
Yeah,
you'd like, since he was
well,
the original
We
author.
had this conversation with our city attorney about how to treat this. And, again, his comment was, this isn't really even an ordinance, doesn't meet the standards for an ordinance. So, if there were any amendment to this or any future conversation about this topic, my recommendation would be bring it back as an amendment to the procurement policy, not as a standalone.
Okay, thank you for that. What I would like to, did you have another question, Counselor?
Can I?
Oh, Counselor Cohen, go ahead.
So in the last meeting when we were discussing, I mentioned that I want to see us keeping the core idea of this ordinance, and maybe we can have something we can create. But I was told that it's a repeal and we will stop it. So we cannot do this. Now we are talking about the policy. So I think it is the same thing I was trying to ask. So now I'm hearing that we can do that if you want. So it is not the end of the discussion, right? Because it's, we are repealing it, done. Nothing can we do.
Well,
So-
the motion before us is to repeal, but we do have the option to do all of those things, but we have to first vote on one motion, and if it doesn't succeed, we can move to do something different.
No, yeah, I understand. I just wanna understand that if we can do this, maybe it will be better in the last meeting. We could have this discussion, and maybe this time we were hearing like all the things, amendments or other things we are discussing right now. That's all I'm saying. I feel like we already lost 2 weeks because we couldn't somehow understand each other in the last meeting. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselors, anything else? All right, then let's vote on this, and before we do, we've had a request from the manager that if there are clarifying questions, please get those questions in, I guess, as soon as possible to allow them as much time. I would also assume that union reps and perhaps Mr. Casey would also be willing to field questions from us if we have them following this meeting.
Yes, I mean, one thing I would just say, Mayor, is I don't believe the second hearing has to be in 2 weeks, right? might it make sense to postpone that second hearing so that the council can get all the information they need to make an informed decision on this at a later date, but before the October repeal?
I think that would be a possibility. At first, let's take a vote on the motion before us, which is to advance to a second hearing. I think I'm just going to go straight to a roll call on this because I don't think we're going to have, so let's start with you online, Counselor Doyle. Oh, sorry, Counselor Alfano, before we go ahead.
I'm just wondering if we, it sounds like there are enough problems. I mean, if we have an ordinance that may not even qualify as an ordinance, yes, repeal is a solution, one solution, but what's, Kurt, from your point of view, the difference between pausing, and what's the issue with pausing for another year while we figure it out and either make it work or decide that it's just not gonna work and repealing it outright?
I mean, that's certainly up to the council. I mean, I think some of the considerations are around legal advice as to the best area to implement this sort of requirement, whether it's policy or ordinance. But yeah, from a management perspective of projects for public works, whether it's suspended or repealed doesn't really change for us.
Okay, good, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so I will say, if counselors, I don't have to say this, you know this, but if you would rather not repeal, but would rather take some other action, then you should not vote yes to repeal, right? Counselor Doyle?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the conversation, the views that have been expressed. I am going to vote for, I just want to express my own opinion that I'm going to vote to move it forward towards a repeal. Not because I think that that's the ultimate solution. I just think that I think that there are other ways maybe to achieve these goals. And I think there's some other steps that we need to take to make sure that this is actually serving the city well. I think the current ordinance doesn't seem to be doing that. And so I think we really need to, at a minimum, significantly tweak it. And that's why I'm moving forward. I would vote to move it forward to the second hearing. And maybe there's some kind of solution we can come up with in the interim of, either a working group or something like that to try to achieve the same goals. But I do think what we have right now isn't working and we need to change it. That's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. We'll keep your microphone on. We'll move to the vote. The motion before us is to advance this to a second hearing. Counselor Doyle, what say you?
Aye.
Okay, Counselor Brown?
No.
Okay, Counselor Cohn?
Yes.
Counselor Sheridan?
Aye.
And Counselor Alfano?
Yes.
So that's 4 ayes, 1 no. The motion does pass. This conversation is not over. I would encourage everyone to learn as much as you can from as many different voices as you can, and we will move forward to a second hearing.
You didn't actually set when, whether it's the next meeting.
All right. So we do have to do that. Okay. Is there any reason it should not be the second meeting? Well, let's open that up to counselors after hearing Mr. Casey's comments. Does it make sense to do it at the next meeting, or does it make sense to give ourselves an extra 2 weeks? Thoughts? Counselor Doyle?
I would give it an extra 2 weeks.
Okay. Do you want to just make that motion? We'll take a second and then vote on it to keep it clean.
See, Manager Curry's got her hand up. Maybe she has.
Manager Curry, go ahead.
I just would need some clear direction on what you would hope for in the intervening month to bring back around this conversation. Because if it's not headed to a repeal, then it's headed somewhere else. And I'm not sure where that somewhere else is, or what goals you wish to achieve and the options that I can propose to you on how to get to those goals. So I'm not clear on what you are hoping for if it's not headed towards repeal right now.
Boy,
I can
go ahead, Counselor
I
Cohn.
can explain my thinking. I personally, I want to see resolution says that we want to establish or succeed the core idea of this ordinance. And we can discuss to repeal it. If we decided to repeal it, then we can create a another one. It doesn't have to be ordinance. It could be policy or other thing. But before doing that, it is good that as a council saying that, okay, we are stopping this ordinance, but we are behind this idea to make it more fair environment for workers. So resolution, maybe repealing, stopping, but definitely having something else instead of this, which fulfill our promise to our community. So
Okay.
that's my idea.
I think what I'm hearing from you and what I'm also hearing from others is that we like the idea of maintaining the spirit of this ordinance, but that this particular instrument itself may be problematic and might need to be repealed in order to achieve that. That's what I think I'm hearing. Councilor Brown?
Yeah, I think it does need to be repealed. I mean, it does not need to be repealed so that we can then decide if we want something different instead. But if we repeal it, it's just gone and that's it. And the proposal is not to repeal it with the caveat that we will do X, Y, and Z. The proposal is just to repeal it. So that's why I'm voting against moving ahead with repeal. And I really respect the city manager asking us for what it is that we need if we're going to delay this by a month, what we need from staff to be able to make a clear decision. And I don't think that that's at all clear. I don't, and I'm the only one who voted no, okay, but I have a lot of ideas for how this could be better or what could be in its place, but I'm not in a position to ask that of staff. So if there are other folks in the council that agree with the idea that the concept of this ordinance is good and some principles in it are good that we want to maintain, then you need to bring that forward and direct the staff to do that. If not, then we can just do it on our own and bring it forward on our own. We don't need the staff to do this for us.
Manager Curry?
And I guess where it's opaque is, I'm hearing a principled political commitment to, the goals of equity, which I totally understand and get, and how they resonate with you all as a board and your broader goals. What we're talking about is an operational direction. And so if any future thing that you want us to bring back continues to be an operational direction, some detail around that would be very helpful. So we can, like what I'm hearing from Palin is we could repeal this ordinance and the operational direction that it currently includes and make a statement of commitment, which is a political resolution committed to the principles of equity. And if that's sufficient, I'm happy to draft something or work with you all to draft something to bring back as your own statement to the public. But if there is further items around, we want staff to behave a certain way in regards to certain categories of contracts, then that's what I need clarity around.
Councilor Doyle?
Thank you. I think, maybe I can just speak in more detail about my thinking around this. Is number one, like I want to learn more about, the distinction between the ordinance and the policy, right? Like, why is this going to be why is this an ordinance as opposed to just being an amendment to the procurement policy? The second thing that I really think a lot about this, and I appreciate Carrie and Connor, what you both said about, look, the feds are doing this, the state is doing this. We're just trying to extend the same level of, equity that those two institutions are doing. I have just concerns about the city's ability to meet that challenge, given what we're facing, in terms of our financial picture. And specifically, I'm thinking about things like the fund reserve, where we have a policy that says we're supposed to have 15% in the fund, and I think we have like 6 or 7 in our reserves, right? Or I think about the pavement condition index. We've set a priority of infrastructure, and we need to commit to achieving that. And I think what I've heard from staff and from others is that, this policy, while well-intentioned, is, impacting our ability to meet those goals. And so I really do believe in the spirit of it and want to see it. But I think what I'm really interested in is, are there kind of benchmarks that we could put into place that say, when we achieve these things, for example, paying our own staff the prevailing wage, then yes, let's implement a policy that allows us to provide contractors with prevailing wage, right? So it's like, I do appreciate there are times when Montpelier needs to lead, right, as a city. But at this particular moment, with all the challenges that we're facing, I think we just need to be really sure-footed about when we decide to lead. And that's why, you know, Kelly, if you're asking, excuse me, Manager Curry, if you're asking like what I would like to see to move the conversation forward, I think it's just more education about the distinction between the policy and the ordinance. And also, and I'm happy to work with others on this if people want to do this, to draft some kind of policy amendment that has specific benchmarks that we could, you know, move forward in this direction when we've achieved these goals and we're best positioned to move forward. That's the direction I can provide.
Okay, Councillor Alfano.
I would just add that, given what the council has on its plate in the next 2 months, I don't see this advancing very far in terms of amending the current policy or even, I mean, we could certainly establish a working group to work on a new policy or ordinance. But I don't think we're going to fix this one before we have to decide before this October deadline. So I mean, I see no reason to extend the time for the second hearing. Let's hear what people have to say based on what they've heard tonight, and come prepared next meeting to decide which way we're going to go. City manager asks a very good question, and we ought to give you that answer, but I don't think it's going to happen tonight. I think it could very well happen next meeting.
Councillor Cohn.
Yeah, and based on the staff recommendation, I see this ordinance as a tool to do a better things. And as of now, this tool is not working well for the staff to do their jobs or to do to have projects. So that's why I think, yeah, repealing this, then start a new chapter, which I listed a couple of the ideas, just all brainstorming. So I will be voting accordingly.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, hopefully last comment here. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I also think there's no need to delay this. I think we can do this 2 weeks from now. I do want to just be really clear. I think Ben really summed it up, that the reason why this is has not currently been working or theoretically would not work is because it's too expensive and the city feels like it can't afford to pay this amount of money for contractors. So let's just be really clear about that. I also am not sure that we've ever actually used this policy, this ordinance. My impression, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think that it was more seeing what the bids might come in at if we were to enforce the ordinance. They were so high that we felt like this is too much for us. So I'm not sure we've ever even actually done this. Just to be clear on that. So I think we should go ahead and move ahead in 2 weeks. And then if it gets repealed, I'm happy, I will be thrilled to work with anybody who's interested in working on something to replace it, whether it's a policy or a different version of the ordinance or anything. I think we can definitely do better.
Mr. Monica, would you like to respond to what the whole idea of has it been used, I think is what you're.
Yeah, yes, I am. So there's been 2 projects where we implemented this ordinance. One was the paving contract and the other one was the school street water main. So that's been enacted twice that I'm aware of.
And the school street project was the one where I think you had said it basically resulted in a roughly 10% increase.
Right. We asked both of those contractors for estimate on the cost implications, and we only received the one from the school street contractor. And yes, it was approximately 10%.
Okay. Councillor Sheridan, last comment?
I haven't made a comment,
Oh.
so thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'd like to just set my position very clear. I don't care if we repeal it and go on to something else. I don't care. My loyalty is to the people of this city who put me here, not the state, not the federal, not the unions. The people who put me here is where my loyalty is, and I want to do the best thing for them.
All right, thank you for that. So I've heard one person say, let's kick it out 2 extra weeks. And then I've heard two folks say, let's just do it for next week. Do we have to do this through a motion, or can I just say we're doing this?
Well, historically, the motion is all in one. So splitting them up like this, maybe you better do it as a motion.
Okay, we'll do it as a motion. Counselor Alfano, could you offer something to the
Yes,
effect?
I will move that we set a second reading for the repeal of the responsible employer ordinance for August 26th council meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion or debate on this topic? Oh, thank you. All in favor of moving this forward to a second hearing on August 26th, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. And now, and thank you for everybody for coming and listening and for the insight and perspectives you will continue to offer between now and when we come back. We're now at 7:41. Moving on to item number 7, which is the District 1 vacancy. We are only 26 minutes behind schedule. We were doing so great for a while there. But this is important, right? So, okay, so Manager Curry, would you like to tee this up for us, please?
Yes, and then I will sit back and let you drive.
Oh, thank you.
So Adrienne Gill resigned from her council District 1 seat last month. And per the city charter, when a vacancy in the office of council member is created in a time that is outside of 90 days within an election, this body has the authority to appoint the replacement, which is an eligible candidate to represent the constituents of District 1. So you have all received 4 applications for this position. Paul Costello, Sean Linehan, Keith Schumacher, and Megan Smith. Thank you all for applying. So it is your course tonight to decide how you would like to vet those candidates. If you wish to interview them, if you wish to have discussion first, I'll leave that all to you. You are also able to go into executive session under 1 VSA 13(3), which allows you to have executive session conversation of an appointment. And then you would come out in the public session and make your selection and describe your reasons for that if you so wish. I will
Okay.
stop there.
Um,
This appointment will serve until the next town meeting day, which will then have an election for candidates to then serve out the remaining year of Counselor Gill's 2-year appointment.
Great. So that means that the next town meeting day, there will be 2 open spots for folks to run for District 1. One for the remaining term of Counselor Gill's term, and one for the seat that is currently occupied by Counselor Doyle for 2 years. So first, just out of curiosity, I don't know everyone by face, who is here in the room that has put their hand forward? Mr. Costello is here. Megan Smith is online, I see. Ms. Smith, would you raise your hand or just let us know that you're here?
Hello.
Hi there. Thank you for coming.
Hi.
I see Mr. Linehan there right next to Ms. Smith. Welcome to say hello as well. And then Keith Schumacher is here in the room with us as well. Great. So first, before we go into that, are there any clarifying questions about what we're doing, how this works from council? Not questions directly for the applicants. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, what I'd like to do is to invite the folks to say a word if you would like, and then if council has questions for them, I would like to encourage council to ask the same questions of all applicants just to keep things fair and even. We could go in any number of orders, but if I'm not mistaken, the order that the applications came in were first Mr. Schumacher, then Ms. Smith, then Mr. Linehan, and then Mr. Costello. Is that correct? Okay, so I'd like to proceed chronologically if no one has any issues with that. Seeing none, let's do that. Mr. Schumacher, I'd welcome you to come and speak if you'd like. Yes, please approach and sit in the seat with the microphone. The folks on Zoom can only hear us if we're using microphones. So, yeah. And first of all, thank you and thank everyone very much for putting your hand forward or your hat forward, whatever the phrase is, for being willing to serve. It's a lot of work and we really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome.
Please have a seat and say anything you'd like and then be ready for some questions.
Well, the day I decided to apply, I didn't wake up that morning thinking, I'm going to apply for this role. I just found out that there was an opening. And I'm at a place in my career and in my long-term life here in Montpelier where I might be able to make a difference and I might be able to help. And it's partly based on my life and the career that I've chosen and how things have evolved. And I find myself with time. And I thought I would just put my hat in the ring and see what I could do. If clearly we need help, and maybe I can help. And you should all know that I'm not someone that is practiced at being a council member. I haven't done it before, so I would be filling in this position for this previous person in the spirit, hopefully, that they served. And it would be a real learn. It would be an honor for me to work here with you all. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Great. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I'm going to ask you a few questions that I think or are predicting are on the minds of more than one counselor, so that just for efficiency, and then I'll open it up for counselors to ask anything that I may have missed. I really only have two questions. One, well, I guess it's three. If seated now at this time, would you intend to seek election in March, in town meeting day?
No. Right now, my thought process is I'm provisional. I'll be here. I'll fill in the role. I'll do what I can until a candidate comes along who may be better than me and may be more capable, or someone that runs and wins, and that's fine. So I wasn't planning on it. However, if I really love it here, I might want to stay. So I originally no, but potentially yes, if I'm feeling like I'm making good use of my time and I'm being effective.
Great.
And I'm helping.
Similar question, if not seated, would you consider running in March? If we seat someone else and we don't seat you at this time?
I would consider it.
Okay. And then I think we've all had a chance to look over your resume and see your sort of work experience and that type of thing. Can you think of any reason that you might have, that there would be a conflict of interest between your role serving as a counselor and your professional or personal life?
Well, I don't think there's anything obvious that would prevent me from working here. My career is changing a bit. I'm evolving from one thing to another. And so I have this construction company, and I'm moving on from that. I had a partnership, and that all dissolved. And now I'm kind of more independent, sole proprietor. And I would hope that if we would forestall any obvious conflicts before they took place, we would make sure that didn't happen.
Sure. Great.
For sure.
Other counselors, do you have questions for Mr. Schumacher? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much for your time and for your willingness to serve. We're going to have a similar conversation with everybody else before we deliberate and make a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Smith, I believe you're chronologically next. So let me just pin you so I can see you here. Please go ahead and say anything you'd like to introduce yourself or tell us why this is something you're willing to do.
Okay. Hi, my name is Megan Smith. I want to participate with this is because I'm looking to be part of the community. I grew up here and I've always been an active member of any specifically student council programs at my colleges and growing up. And I have some things that I have been thinking about for quite some time that I think would be really helpful for this town. And so there are things that I want to address and also continue the conversations and the meetings that you guys are having.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you the same questions and then open it up to counselors if they'd like to. If you are seated during this round, is it your intention to run for the seat or one of the seats in March?
That would depend on my proficiency and if I was the right person. If I truly believed I was the right person.
Okay.
And I was getting positivity from.
Okay, and absent that opportunity to test drive the role, if you're not seated now, what are your feelings about running in March?
That would depend on how things are, seeing the meetings and seeing if I am the right person for the position. And also because I have specific things that I want to address, if those would be appropriate. So.
Okay. Would you like to say anything more about those specific things you'd like to
Yeah.
address?
So the biggest thing I want to move forward with is, or show up is that the dorms up at the college area, I want to bring those to the community. I want people to be able to live in there, just like they're living in, I think it's Dewey Hall.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I want to work on.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And is there anything in your personal or professional life that might create a conflict of interest with serving as a city councilor?
If there's anything addressed with people with disabilities, I have epilepsy and I am an SSDI, so I don't know if there's any conflict there.
Okay. Like nothing comes to my mind, but counselors, would anyone like to ask questions of Ms. Smith? Counselor Cohn.
No question, just an appreciation. I really want to thank everyone, all four of you, show interest in this position, but especially I want to thank Megan because we need more women. So like 4 candidates, only one is a woman. So I really appreciate you having that interest and courage. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Counselor Cohn. And thank you, Ms. Smith. As I just mentioned, we'll have a similar conversation with the other applicants and then we'll make a decision hopefully tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Linehan, you are chronologically next. You have the floor to say whatever you like at this time.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Sean Linehan, live on Crestview Drive. I currently serve as a planning commissioner. I've been on the planning commission for the past 2 years, and I'm really invested in seeing the city moving forward right now, post-pandemic and post-flood, and seeing Adrian Gill's replacement be somebody who kind of carries forward her legacy and attitude that she brought to the council of being forward-looking and moving forward with a Montpelier that it will work for everybody and be stronger tomorrow.
Great, thank you. So same questions. If seated during this process, would you intend to run in March?
I think at this point I would intend to run.
Okay. And if not seated during this process, is your answer the same?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And is there anything in your personal or professional life that would create a conflict of interest with you being able to serve?
I don't believe so. I currently the primary caregiver of 3 children, which allows me the time to serve on the planning commission and potentially the time to serve on city council.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And thank you for all of your work on the planning commission. That's very important work and we really appreciate that. Any counselors have additional questions or comments for Mr. Linehan? I see none. Mr. Linehan, thank you so much for coming tonight and for, again, for your service to the city and your willingness to serve on council. We'll have a conversation with Mr. Costello and then we'll deliberate and we'll make a decision. Thank you. Mr. Costello, would you please come forward?
Paul Costello. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And councilors. I believe Montpelier is at a point of building momentum, that it's a city on the rise, and that we've come through tough times, we've come through floods, we've come to a devastated downtown, and it's time for us to pull together. I spent my career as a neutral facilitator of public process in 100 towns and cities across the state of Vermont, engaging thousands of people, building over 500 local initiatives, and then serving as a public policy facilitator for everything from COVID response at the state level to looking at our future in an age of climate change in a bipartisan way that looks at our economic foundations and opportunities rather than condemning different people. So I feel like I'm an expert at trying to bring people together, move things forward that are for the common good, and particularly to celebrate the leadership of all the good people who are doing work in our community. I'm really proud of this city. I love Montpelier. And I think we need to step up and raise the bar in terms of our pride and our optimism for a strong future. And that's what I would want to speak to. In the 6 months or so that I would be on council, in answer to the first question, I'm not interested in running for a long-term position. I'm retired. I'm very, very busy with a number of activities, but I feel like I have skills and a disposition to listen and to be useful to people rather than to put myself forward in any kind of way of thinking that I know better than other folks. And in fact, though I have a fair policy background, I don't know the work that you're doing in the kind of detail that any of you know. And I would want to be useful first as a learner and a listener, but ultimately as someone who could be another balance point with all of you in the hard decisions that you make.
Okay.
Sorry to go so long.
No,
Hope I
thank you.
used my 2 minutes.
You've answered, I think you've answered the first 2 questions, but it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, whether seated during this process or not, you have no intention to run in March?
No.
Okay. And is there anything in your personal or professional life that would create a conflict of interest?
I don't believe so. I'm very engaged both at the national level on the Heron Foundation, in philanthropy around the state a bit. I'm on the Vermont Land Trust Board, the Vermont Natural Resources Council Board, and I'm also on the Foundation for the Resilient Montpelier Board, which I think is a good balance point and useful. I don't see the municipality and the nonprofit working for community development and trying to answer the long-term resilience challenges in any way ever in conflict. And I think that having information go back and forth between those entities is really useful for us right now. So I don't see any conflicts with any of it.
Okay, thank you. Other counselors, you have Counselor Cohn.
Thank you again for having an interest. It's a general question. So sometimes because Ben is on the same board, he recused himself from voting. And if Paul does the same thing, then we will have like 4 counselors voting. Would it be any problem with the voting process? Just came to my mind.
You mean if 2 counselors recuse themselves from the same thing, we would still have enough to take action. We require 4 votes.
So there will be no
There would be
problem.
enough.
Okay.
There would be 5 of us, including me. that would be allowed to vote.
Yeah, thank you.
That is true, yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Costello? Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for your willingness to serve, and thanks for all of your other work that you do elsewhere.
Thanks.
So at this time, can we just have open discussion amongst the counselors, or until such time as someone is ready to make a motion that we seat one of these folks? When you're ready to do that, go ahead and do that. Does anyone have other questions for each other around these counselors, around these, sorry, applicants, or any questions for each other about these? Counselor Sheridan, go ahead.
Probably should have done this when he spoke, but I guess I'd have a question for Sean. Whether if he was appointed, would he stay on the planning commission or not?
I think he's still in the room. Mr. Linehan, if you'd like to answer that, he's shaking his head, but.
No, I don't think that I could do both, and I don't think that, I'm not sure what the rules are in regards to that, but I anticipated leaving the planning commission. Because that would have conflicts.
Question, who is the current council liaison to the planning commission?
I think we have one.
No, not staff, but is there not we don't have one?
No, we don't put one on boards like planning.
Oh, that's right. Yes, sorry.
Or development.
Right,
review
okay,
board.
thank you.
They're regulatorily different.
Right.
Thank you for answering that, Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Sean.
Of course.
Okay, any other questions or Counselor Cohn?
I developed some kind of rubric for myself when I am checking all the resumes and cover letters. I'm happy to share it if anyone is interested. I don't know if we are all using, so I have some ideas who I want to see at this seat, but I prefer having executive sessions so I can hear other people's reasons why they have a specific person to fill the position.
So in order to go into executive session, we need to
Yeah.
have a finding that, is this, help me out here, John.
Pretty sure this one is what you don't need to have a finding.
We don't need a finding,
Because
okay.
it's gonna be a personnel.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to just make a motion to go into executive session, we
Well,
can,
I'll double check.
yeah, just double check it for us. We want to make sure we get it right.
Just go.
Yeah, we did this for years.
Oh, that's yours. My bad.
Read the top line and then, fill in the blanks and then number 3.
Okay, let's try. I move that we enter executive session to discuss appointment, District 1 vacancy to councillor appointment. Oh no, what is it? Sorry, I'm like. Is that it? Is there anything else?
That's probably.
I think that's it, right? Because the others in the.
You have to read number 3.
Yeah, didn't I say? Okay, let me start again. I move that we enter executive session to discuss the appointment of District 1 vacancy to councillor pursuant to 1 VSA 313A
313A
3.
Okay, the motion,
You want me to
the motion
repeat?
before us, well, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Counselor Sheridan seconds. The motion before us is to enter executive session to discuss the appointment of District 1 vacancy to council pursuant VSA 313A3.
3, yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? I think that's 5. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ms. Smith, do you have a question before we go into executive session? You're muted.
Oh, there we go. I wanted to ask you about District 1. So I am in District 2, but I wanted to be an at-large council. So I was wondering if that was something that you have the ability to vote on that.
I don't believe that is the case.
Okay.
But we'll address it when we come out of executive session, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so with that, we're entering executive session.
Right. Ben and Carrie, I emailed you a meeting link.
Thank you.
A online meeting link so that the participants of council and those who are joining remotely are able to go into executive session for purposes of their discussion.
And with any luck, we'll be able to enter executive session, come back, deliberate publicly, make a decision publicly, and still be on track for general business and appearances around 8:30. That's the goal. Okay. All right. Okay, I got it. Thank you. All right, so counselors will go to the city manager's conference room. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 8:15. And we're back. I would entertain a motion to exit executive session. I think that's what we do first.
So moved.
Okay. Okay, we have two moves. So I'll count Counselor Sheridan moved and Counselor Alfano seconded that. We're all in favor of exiting executive session, say aye.
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 Okay, and it looks like we do have Counselors Brown and Doyle. I think I should have checked in on them first, but that was unanimous. Any, for the record, any abstentions, any nays? All right, we're out of executive session. All right, at this time, I'd entertain well, does anyone want to make any comments before we take a motion? Seeing none, is there a motion to seat one of these applicants to replace Counselor Gill for the remainder of her? Yes, Counselor Doyle, go ahead.
Well, actually, Mark, I just wanted to thank all the candidates, right? I think it's really challenging to put yourself out there. I'm really grateful to all of them for doing that and appreciate all the skills and passion that they bring from Montpelier. And so I hope that even if you're not seated tonight, that you'll continue to pursue serving the city of Montpelier because we could use your help.
Well said. Thank you.
And with that, I would make a motion to seat Paul Costello to fill out the remainder of Adrian Gill's term in District 1.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. And I would just like to say to the two that are interested in running, I hope you do. That would give us a race. We haven't had one for quite a while. So I hope Sean and Keith run next time. Megan, you have to live in the district that you run for, just to let you know. And a second.
Okay, and that's a second. Is there any further
thank you.
discussion or debate on this topic before we take a vote? Seeing none, all in favor of seating Paul Costello to fill out Adrian Gill's spot until town meeting day of 2027. Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? I'm sorry to say, Mr. Costello, we would love to have you serve in Counselor Gill's spot in District 1 until town meeting day. Thank you very much for your willingness. Mr. Schumacher and Mr. Linehan, thank you again for being willing to step forward. We do need people to run, to serve with us. So thank you for your willingness, and we'd like to encourage that. Mr. Counselor Sheridan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think Paul should go over there and sit down.
Paul, would you care to join us? Were you planning to stay the rest of the night? Is that how it works? I think we have to be sworn in, right?
Yes.
He has to be sworn. He has to be sworn in, but he can start right after that.
Why don't I can sit here until
Well, the next item on our agenda is a break. So before we formally close this agenda item, are there any other words, questions, comments, emotional outbursts from council before we break for recess? Okay, just once again, I know we said it too many times already. Ms. Smith, thank you for your willingness. Mr. Linehan, Mr. Schumacher, thank you for your willingness, and thank you for your potential willingness to run in March. With that, it is 8:19. We're in recess until 8:30. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 8:31 on, we are behind. It is 8:31 on Wednesday, August 12th, 2026. This meeting of Montpelier City Council is called back to order. Before we go to general business and appearances, we're going to swear in our newest councillor, Paul Costello. Mr. Odom, you want to take the reins here?
Where should I stand? Want me to, I can come down there, you can come up here, wherever you like. Should I?
Stand right here.
It says I had to be from District 1. I don't know why she lied, to be honest.
Do you solemnly affirm that you will true and faithfully state the Constitution and will not directly or indirectly put an act of consideration of the Constitution or government thereof? Do you solemnly affirm that you will faithfully execute the office of city council member for the city of Montpelier and will bear equal right and justice to all persons to the best of your judgment and ability according to the law? All right, small.
If you'd like to join us, yes, you could take your pick, really. Carrie's not here today. We could remove her nameplate if need be, but that is the seat that Adrian occupied. And I guess that'll be your seat.
Well, it's a great honor to be here with all of you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be of use.
Thank you. We're glad to have you, grateful to have you serve. And then we also understand that you may not have prepared yourself to be a fully participating member. So, be in the seat, do as you will, abstain as needed, use your judgment.
Thank you.
That's why you're here. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. We are now on to item number 8, general business and appearances. This is where any member of the public may speak on any agenda item. If you have already spoken on a previous agenda item, we'd ask you not to use this time to speak further on that agenda item. If you choose to speak on a future agenda item during general business and appearances, you will not be recognized again for that agenda item. We're just trying to cut down on duplication. Otherwise, you'll have 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak on any item for 5 minutes? Mr. Whitaker.
Thank you.
There's the board. You can't do this one in 5 minutes, but you can read it later tonight.
Okay, good. Mr. Whitaker, I hesitate to call you out publicly, but the manner in which you strut past and throw documents at us is rude and disrespectful. So I object to that.
Respectfully disagree.
You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
What this city gets right, because it does occasionally happen. After I flagged the new bike path missing markings, Kelly acted and Public Works moved fast. Cone, signage, Complete Streets Committee worked last week to spec every driveway crossing signage. I walked it today and the last several days, all of it's gone but a few cones. It's more dangerous now than before I ever said anything. I have given you the 10-page comment in front of you with copies for others. I'm going to give you the through line and let the citations document carry the rest. The through line is truthfulness, the gap between the government we say we are and the one we actually are. A barricaded park with false electrical hazard and a new sensitive area sign. Another park with a sensitive area, no camping sign, equally false. A river we market for kayaking while we dump raw sewage into it almost every large storm event. A department director who told the council that the sewer gas problem was solved. It wasn't. It still blows up 24 hours a day right next to the bench where someone sleeps every night. And this city won't say whether a dispatching error contributed to the death on Spring Street Bridge in 2019. More than 30 public records appeals have gone to the city manager since February. Not a denial, not one word back. 3 examples are in the memo. The capital improvement plan request answered with only an equipment sheet. A severance memorandum the city now says doesn't exist, despite releasing it under an exemption in 2022, and a federal urgent need certification whose own attached justification doesn't support what it certifies. Country Club Road gets a full section in the memo, and it deserves one. The required environmental assessment is over 4 years stale. I said so. The city denied it needed replacing. Soil was disturbed before delineation without the state permission the rule requires. The city intends to sign a binding developer agreement before environmental clearance, which its own federal award letter says it cannot lawfully do. It will forfeit the $5 million if you sign a binding agreement before environmental clearance. The garden feeding the senior center has not been adequately tested for food safety. The environmental review RFP went out to 3 firms the day before a federal deadline. 2 of the 3 have disqualifying conflicts of interest, never publicly posted, as required on the city and the state website. And on the city's own numbers, both the $3 million Northern Border Grant and the $5 million CDBG DR grant are on track to lapse before the site is ready to build on. But here's what actually deserves to be called a different league, not a mistake. 7 years ago, this council created a homelessness task force and identified at its first meeting exactly what was needed: showers, camping, toilets, lockers. Almost none of it exists today. A $425,000 ARPA earmarked by the city council for this sat unspent and was quietly reallocated before it lapsed. Up to 100 people are sleeping outside in the city tonight. The number of dignified shelter beds available to them is 0. And instead of meeting that obligation, we run people off public land where they have a right to be, aggravating the very mental health crisis we claim to care about. And we lean on the church community, unfunded, to do the job this city's own adopted plan assigns to the city manager. We don't get to profess dignity and integrity and fail this badly for this long on the people who actually need us to mean it. There's more in the memo. A taser purchase revived 15 years after a citizen committee recommended against it, buried it on a consent agenda, no comment allowed, with no mention of that history and no real funding source and no sole source justification, even though it was stated it was required. That's sleazy. Here's what I want you to take from tonight. This isn't about whether I win any of this in court. We say we want economic development and housing. What we don't reckon with is what dishonesty costs us. Residents willing to serve on committees, credibility with developers, honesty with ourselves. Every hour spent managing a false story instead of fixing what's underneath it is trust we don't get back. That's not solved by better signs or lower fees. It's solved by this council deciding that restoring trust matters more than protecting whoever's inconvenienced by the truth this week. Everything I've said is documented in what you've got in your hands. I ask that the full document be entered into the record.
Can you give me a copy?
You can have my copy here, John. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on any topic?
Would you like another copy?
I would not, thank you.
Is that just a?
That your time is up. We're moving on. Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak? Mr. Whitaker, that is unnecessary, rude, disrespectful. Is there anyone online that would like to speak on any topic? I would like to point out that Mr. Whitaker is entitled to his opinion. He is entitled to his 5 minutes to say whatever he would like. Many of the things that he states are factually inaccurate. I would urge anyone, before believing everything that he says wholesale, to please find other opinions and other sources of information. That is true of everything we say and of everything that everyone says. No one should be taken completely at their word as truth. Okay. Having said that, seeing no one else wanting to speak under general business and appearances, we are, wow, 8:40, right on schedule. We are here to talk about number 9, the district heat rates. For that, I'd like to turn it over to Manager Kelly to tee it up for us, please. Thanks.
Our Director Heather Graves and Public Works Director Kurt Monica. I'll turn it the right way. Is that better? Thank you to our Finance Director, Heather Graves, and our Public Works Director, Kurt Modica, for preparing this presentation. Annually, you are required to adopt new district heat rates for the forthcoming year. These are based on information and rate setting that comes down from the state, which is why it sort of operates on a different calendar than other budgets that you adopt operate on. The state does not send these numbers to us until about mid-June. And so we were following forward on that. And once they get set up, I will turn it over. All right, while they do that, I will just give a bit of an update. As you know, the district heat system has been in the red for a number of years. It also has not had new clients that have been added to the system, which when it was first brought online, it was expected that we would have more clients added by this point. We are pursuing opportunities to add additional clients. We have been in active conversations with the state, the Public Services Commission. I'm going to forget the formal name of the energy office as well to help. They're helping us identify if there are additional grants that could help subsidize the cost to bring new customers on. They have taken great interest in looking at the finances of the system and encouraging the city to get back on track to investigate and build out a plan for a viable district heat utility. We are working on that. These are long-term projects still. I can leave it at that. There's been collaborative effort. We definitely are giving this attention. We're on a clock, in a number of years when the system bonds will be paid off, and I'll stop there. But just to give you an update on how we're actively working around this concern.
Thank you.
Just trying to figure out why it's showing in the My Notes section and it's not anywhere else. Apologies for that. You want to try rolling with it?
It looks great on my Zoom.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Okay, hi everyone. Heather Graves, the Finance Director. And Kurt Modica is with me, the DPW Director. We're here this evening to talk about the budget for District Heat for FY27 and setting the new rates for the customers. So this is an overview of our debt service at the end of FY26. You can see from the beginning, we've paid off just over $1 million, 12 years into the system. This is an overview of the budget I've prepared for this evening. It's a 10% increase from FY26's budget. The state's estimated energy costs increased by 12% from FY26. Between FY25 and FY26, the increase was only 0.5%, which is why we're seeing a much bigger change in our budget for this year. We're needing to up our revenue to cover the cost of the heating fuel, as well as costs of replacing some of the items within the plant because they're starting to age, and we're finding that we need to spend more on the maintenance of the plant. This sheet shows the capacity charge allocation among all customers. You'll see the very last column, the increase or decrease in monthly costs is unchanged. The capacity rate remains the same as FY26. We try not to change anything with the capacity rate because the customers don't have much control over what that ends up costing them. We try to only adjust the energy rate to cover additional costs because they have the opportunity to dial down their heat or up however they feel.
So what I'm proposing is to keep the capacity rate the same as prior years at $6.90 and increase our energy rate by $1 to $17.65. That's the same increase that we did for prior year. So for FY26, we also increased by $1.
Any clarifying questions from council, Mr. Sheridan?
Last year, we lost approximately 200,000 on this. Is that right?
Say that one more time.
Last year, we lost approximately 200,000 on this.
I think it was more 150 range, 140.
Okay.
140,000.
So is it going to be about the same this year?
I'm expecting the similar
Okay.
outcome.
Thank you.
I would just note that the approach here is the same that has been in place in past years where, normally in a fund like this, we would budget for depreciation. We're not collecting that revenue to cover depreciation. And so that is part of the reason why you end up with a negative at the end of the year.
And so the question before council is to accept the recommendation and set the rate at the proposed rate. Is that correct?
That is correct. And just to note, the city is required to hold a customer meeting on this. They did that earlier this week and notified the customers that this is forthcoming. The district heat calendar, it doesn't run all year. It runs, I think, I'm going to look September to May. I think it's how many months? I'm looking at here.
October 1st and May
October
1st.
1st to May 1st, just so you know. So that will kick in starting October 1st when the system gets turned back on.
Councilor Sheridan?
Do we have any prospective new customers at the moment?
Good question.
Oops. So yes, through the grant opportunity and NRBC grant, which will pay, it's basically a 1-to-1 grant match. We have a tentative agreement with a new customer on School Street, the owner of Mangy's Bread. I don't have a signed agreement at this point. We don't have a signed grant agreement. So once the grant agreement is finalized, then we'll propose a MOU with that customer and then follow with a customer agreement. And the plan would be to match the term, the length of time or the same end date as all of the other existing customers. So it'll be a shorter time frame for this new customer because the system's already been running since 2014. So they'd all have the same end date, but it does look very promising that this will come through. So I have a sort of a verbal agreement at this point. So not 100% set, but I do expect once everything is approved, we'll be able to get them connected. But it probably will not be this heating season because we only have 2 months. And the grant administrators have indicated it's unlikely they'd be able to approve the grant before the heating season starts.
Thank you.
And we're kind of stuck between the solution to bringing the rate down to something attractive to all of the users is to get more users. But the barrier to getting more users is the rate is very unattractive. Right? Does that sound right? So what, if anything, is there a long-term path towards making this thing work for us? I mean, I think these are old questions, but I'm asking them for the first time.
So yes, we have 2 sort of methods in which we could make district heat a financially competitive heating source. One is to add a group of customers all through a single project. One of the areas we're looking at right now is along Elm Street. It currently ends at Langdon, but if we were able to continue that out all the way to the Down Street buildings potentially, there's an opportunity to pick up buildings along that path as well as Down Street. And the manager's been in discussions with Down Street about potential grant opportunities to connect them and extend the district heat line. And when you add a group of customers all at the same time, that will collectively bring the rate down for all of the users and make it competitive to oil. The other approach that we're looking at is a snow melting system. So right now, all of our snow from downtown snow removal is trucked out to the stump dump on Outer Elm Street, basically the town line. And it's a fair amount of staff time and fuel use and things like that. Operationally, there's costs associated with doing that trucking. And also environmental impacts. There's trash and salt mixed in with the snow. So there are benefits to constructing a snow melting system where we could stockpile the snow in a parking lot and load it into a melter fueled by the district heat system. The challenges with that is that we would need more capacity allocated from the state, from the Department of Buildings and General Services, because the energy use from a snow melting system has a very high peak. And we are only currently allocated about 9.7 million BTUs. And that's enough to do customers and grow the system, but not enough to heat all our customers and run a snow melter at the same time. So the idea would be to do snow removal, time it with when not cold nights, the lower use, but we would still need capacity from the state. And we've not yet been able to get a commitment from the state for that additional allocation, but we're still working on it.
Is that because it's not advantageous to them, or do we feel like they would they would love to sell us the extra capacity?
So their position has been that they would like to maintain 100% redundant capacity, so that they have, if half of their plant, the biomass plant, went down for service, they would still be able to provide all of the demand, including the snow melt. But we propose that if that were to happen, we wouldn't do snow removal at those times, or we would go back to trucking or something like that. But at this point, that's their position, and I think I know we're gonna continue to have discussions with the state and see if we can come to a compromise on that. But so far, that we just don't have that commitment, and then that would allow us to then apply for grants once we have a commitment from the state for that capacity.
Councilor Sheridan.
Is the fire department's front on that?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Other questions from council? I guess we have to take public comment on this item. Is there any member of the public, before we take a motion and debate, any member of the public that would like to speak on this topic? Oh, Mr. Whitaker.
Does this one work? I don't need to just, well, I guess you already know. I just want to flag an example of this dysfunction that this was, we created the sustainability coordinator position to get the district heat running in the black many years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And our building inspector jumped and took a very large raise, tens of thousands of dollars. And I've talked to the engineers that designed this system. They never had a call saying, we need to restructure the rates. Here's how we would go about doing it. So the ball has been dropped dramatically. And another example, I just went to the Development Review Board last week, and Lucky was proposing a new 20 to 40 unit apartment building where the old Baptist church is on Elm Street, just beyond the down street buildings. And I asked, could we condition this on maybe that he hook up to the district heat? And he had already decided to go electric with heat pumps. And that's an example of the dysfunction of our marketing. If we're not coordinating the remaining congressionally directed spending to get the steam pipe down Elm, not just to the downstream properties, but all the way to where Lucky's planning to build that large building. You know where I'm talking about? So I'm just aghast at how mismanaged this has been, but I'm not surprised.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Any other members of the public like to speak on this topic? Not seeing any. Mr. Monica, is there anything else that you would like to add? Okay.
No.
Okay, council, the task before us is to approve or not. Oh, Mr. Doyle, Councilor Doyle, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, like, I think it's really encouraging to hear about the new potential customers. Kurt, I really appreciate your conversations with those folks and Manager Curry for your work there. I mean, I think we really do need just to get more people on this system if it's going to be sustainable. I think the price of oil might also be a motivator for that. So I think it's a good time to have those conversations. I don't want to, I'm sorry, Mark, if you have other things you want to do, but I'm happy to make the motion that we approve these rates as proposed.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion or debate on this topic? The motion before us is to approve the rates as proposed. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, we have one abstention. Thank you, all. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ayes, 1 abstention.
I think you need to do a roll call.
Oh, because, okay, yes, we do. Thank you. So we'll do a roll call because it's not unanimous. We'll start in the room. Counselor Cohn. We have to do a roll call because it's
Okay.
not a unanimous.
I said yes.
Okay, Counselor Sheridan?
Yes.
Counselor Alfano?
Yes.
Counselor Costello?
I abstain.
Okay, Counselor Brown?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
5 yeses, 1 abstention. The motion passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, we are now moving on to, and thank you, Ms. Graves, Mr. Monica, for your presentation. Item number 10, the Charlie O's noise variance. Sounds like a band name. But we would, Manager Curry, will you please tee this up for us? Thank you.
I will. So before you today is a request from Great American Enterprises LLC doing business as Charlie O's for a variance from the City of Montpelier's noise ordinance, which is found in Section 11, Article 10 of the City Code. And this variance request is specific to the event schedule that is proposed in your packet. This came to our attention when we had a neighbor complaint in reaction to one specific evening of live music on the patio, and led us to learn a lot about Charlie O's and noise variance ordinances and other things. So we've confirmed Charlie O's has all the right permitting in place, all the right zoning approvals for their outdoor space. Live bands play above what the commercially allowable decibel reading would be, which is 65 decibels, which is not very high. And so they're coming before you today requesting a variance, which is at your discretion to play louder than that until the periods of time on the dates that they have requested. You are able to put conditions on this if you wish. I invite you to ask questions of the applicant if you have them about what they anticipate for this event schedule. And I'm happy to answer further questions. And I want to thank City Clerk John Odom for working through this with all of the interested parties. Thanks, John.
Great. At this point, first, are there any clarifying questions from council on what it is we're trying to decide here and how we got here? Okay, then I think that what we will eventually entertain is probably a motion to grant this variance or something else, right? But that seems the obvious choice. At this time, Ms. Jenny, could you care to say anything about how we got here or your story? You're not required to at all. We will hold public comment, but first I'll invite you to speak. You're not limited to 2 minutes.
I'm Abby Jenny. I live in Berlin, Vermont. I have worked at Charlie O's for 20 years and I do all the booking there. And I would like to publicly apologize to the neighbors that were disturbed. The one night we had a punk band out there. Normally we have acoustic acts, but my staff member is leaving for Europe and wanted her band to play on the veranda. It was a great night full of joy for everybody except for the neighbors that were disturbed. And again, I apologize.
Okay.
We like to be good neighbors.
Sure. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for saying that. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this topic? Anyone online? Seeing, well, Oh,
Margot?
Margot applauded, but is not raising her hand. Margot,
Oh.
would you like to say something?
Yes, sorry, I'd used my reactions wrong. Yeah, I just want to say that I'm a constituent of Montpelier and that I really enjoyed the live music that Charlie O's has. It's one of the few like outdoor settings that we have for live music, and that I would hope that that continues and that the decibel like variance is passed tonight.
Great. All right. Thank you for that. Anyone else that would like to speak to this? All right. At this point, the next thing would be to entertain a motion to grant the variance. Is there such a motion?
Sure. I would be, first I'd just like to give a little history on them that I know from way back. Way back, at one time when Charlie's was said to be a problem area, I said, I go around all the bars and just sit in as a liquor inspector. I mean, we are all liquor inspectors. And she knows it, I did that. And, I said at that time, Charlie O's was the best run bar in the city. And chief of police at that time was Tony. And he said, I totally agree with you. So and you were having something to do with it then. So thank you for running an excellent bar.
Thank you, Jim.
And I would be happy to make the motion to grant that.
Okay. So is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, we have 2 seconds. So the motion before us is to grant the noise variance to Charlie O's. Is there any discussion or debate on this topic? All right, with that, all in favor of granting the noise variance, I'm going to actually go straight to, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have our first unanimous vote, including Paul Costello, unanimously passes.
Welcome to the council, Paul.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Jenny, thank you for coming and staying all of this time.
It's been an honor. Yeah.
All right, and with that, I would just like to point out that I have a decibel meter on my phone. It is not terribly accurate, but right now I'm speaking at a decibel level of 75 decibels.
Tone it down, man. Tone it
if
down.
65 at the property line is, so this brings, I mean, there's another question about what the noise ordinance maybe should be. That is not on the agenda for tonight.
Right.
But it's, I'm guessing, a perennial question in every town. Do you want to say something about that?
Yes, this has just piqued I think there's an opportunity to close a gap here so that Charlie O's or other venues don't have to come back every year to request a noise variance, because there is language in the code that if you are a bar and a restaurant, you can have live entertainment. Their zoning approval is to be a bar and a restaurant. The noise variance ordinance, or the noise ordinance, says you are exempt if you have an entertainment permit, but it's not totally clear that an entertainment permit is their zoning permit. So I think we have an opportunity to kind of link those two to then create an automatic exemption for the purposes that are already approved in their zoning.
I don't know that I have the voice to speak for the whole council, but I think it would be worth having you come back to us at some point in the future with cleaned up language for us to adopt.
I'm sure there will be like a code cleanup at some point, and this can like fall under that umbrella.
Great. All right. Thank you. So we're now going to move forward to item number 11, the Country Club Road Planning Path. Thanks again, Abby, for coming. Thank you, everybody, for the unanimous vote. On this next item, it is 9:05. On this next item, there's no decision point for us. We're just learning and receiving a presentation.
I would just like to check in, Ben and Carrie, I emailed you this PowerPoint. It might be just as easy for you to watch it on Zoom, but you should have that in your email.
Thank you.
Got it. Okay.
Down arrow to move it down.
Outside.
All right. Good evening, Mike Miller, Planning Director for the city and resident on Berlin Street, so District 3. So tonight, we're just going to go over, at the last meeting, we were able to celebrate kind of getting DEW authorized to move forward into negotiations, which was a great milestone, but we wanted to kind of reset the path. And we found a few glitches on the, if you look at the details, there are a few bars that haven't exactly lined up, but we were trying to kind of get everything in so we could start to lay out what are all the pieces that are going into Country Club Road to actually get us to our housing units that we've been talking about for a couple of years now. So in the first blue section, the blue bar at the top, we talk about the things that we mentioned last week, the letters of intent, the development agreement. These are all going to be in this year, September, October. At some point, and some of these we flagged, we don't have an exact date. We'll have to figure them out. We have to subdivide the property for sale and we'll have to transfer the property. So there'll be some decision points in there which we'll have to go through. Some of these will come through the negotiation of the development agreement because we're going to have to agree on what's the border. That'll be in the development agreement. And then we can go through and subdivide to match that border and do a transfer. But those are things that we will be working on. You will be working on as council. And then another element of this, which you know of, is the infrastructure grants. So the $8 million in grants that we have to bring the utilities up to Country Club Road and to improve the intersections and the road themselves. So we have these grants. Some of the pre-award we have in green. So these are the things we need to do in order to reach a point where we're allowed to qualify for spending money. So we've got to check a bunch of boxes, one of which is we've got to have an MOU with VTrans. So Manager Curry and I are working on that. That's going to be coming up next week. We'll be having our first meeting with them to really start to go through and lay out what are their flags and what are our flags and what are our needs. And so that way we can develop an MOU that will allow us to move forward with designing the project to meet their needs and our needs. A second piece that's required before we can access any of those grant money is the environmental assessments. So we put out a first RFP and the RFPs came back very different. We submitted those up to the state, talked to the state. They recommended going back and reposting it with clarifications in it. So that way we would have more similar responses. We thought things would be fairly straightforward. Most people use a pretty stock RFP, request for proposals, but people interpreted it slightly differently. We have reposted it and we will have that for you at your next council meeting. So that will hire somebody to do the environmental assessment, which we hope would be done in December. We won't know till we get timelines back, but this is just laying out some times for you to kind of have an idea of what might be coming up. We'll have to amend the grant agreement to remove the pump station and adjust the cost projection. So that's something the manager and I will work on, but just give you, make you aware, you may remember this project was always talked about as an $11 million project. That included all the infrastructure plus a $3 million pump station. It was in there because that was going to be the match if we got the build grant. We did not get the build grant. We still have to do that, and you'll see it's on the bottom, the very bottom line for long-term says pump station. We still have to do the pump station. It's just not going to be part of the grant. But we've got to go back to the grant. Our agents, when we applied for the grants, had these things in here. We've got to make these adjustments. It's a standard correction that we do these types of adjustments all the time to match grant funds to the projects. And then we have some other grant conditions, which we will continue to work on throughout this summer. Our hope is to have this all wrapped up so we are through for 2027, where we can move into the purple section, which is the infrastructure implementation, where you do what you'd expect, designing and permitting. These are all the things Kurt does, designing and permitting the sewer and water pipes, do the right-of-way adjustments that need to be done, put it out to bid and do construction. Construction for the infrastructure, we are proposing at this time for 2028. So we're 2026 right now. Between now and through 2027 is going to be a lot of work to do those designs and get everything ready to go and put out the bids. So that way we are ready to go for 2028 construction. So we now have a DEW agreement and we have infrastructure in the ground. But again, we're moving a lot of moving parts and trying to keep everything going in the right place. Up on Country Club Road, you'll hear a lot about the brownfield. We're working on that supplemental phase 2. We're gonna, once we have that, we'll have a development agreement with DEW. And the way you implement a corrective action plan is by working with the developer. You can't do a corrective action plan without a project. So we will now have a project and a corrective action plan, and we can work with DEW to overlap their work with cleaning remediating the brownfield conditions. That will take care of some of the brownfield. There are other pieces of brownfield that will remain in city property. We will have to negotiate with or sign contracts separately to clean up those other sites. And I'm going to have a really quick presentation after this to talk about a little bit more about the brownfield. But this gives you an idea. You can see how things start to stack up. We get this done, then we can hand it to this. Once we've got these pieces, you can see how they can kind of walk along. We can't do the cleanup till we have a development agreement, and we can't move to the next step till we have this one. So we have these. We will also be pursuing brownfield implementation money. Specifically, that'll probably go to some of the cleanup of the city portion. And then the CAP implementation will be 2029. And we'll get to why that's 2029 in a second. Because in the last section we have is the teal section talking about Tier 1A application. So part of our obligation to this whole process was for us to help to get this project out of Act 250 because it'll reduce costs. It's an expensive process. It's a time-consuming process. The CVRPC plan, which you've heard a lot about, that is going to be approved at the end of 2026. And that will allow us in 2027 to apply for Tier 1A application. So you can start to see how things are starting to stack up for DEW housing project. So in 2026 and 27, they'll be doing additional studies, market studies, traffic studies, a bunch of other things that they're going to have to refresh on their side to make sure they're ready to go to design. They would then work in 27 and 28 on design and permitting. And these are some dates that are kind of pulled out of their application. We would put in an application in 27 or 28. They need to have enough of their project done or designed for us to be able to put in that application. So in that window, we would put in that CHIP application. And they would be ready to go to construction in 2029. So you can start to see a little bit of a picture. If you can put all this in your head, you can see how all these little pieces are going. So that way we can get the water and sewer up there in 2028. The brownfield assessments are done. The Tier 1A is done. Their design, they have done their design. They've done their permitting. They're ready to go. They can put shovels in the ground in 2029. And that gives them 2029 and 2030, 2 years to complete phase 1, or at least to get the down street housing project that they've proposed, which is the requirement for the grant. So you can see how all the pieces kind of fit together. We're still working through to make sure there's something we've missed, something else that they're going to ask for in their development agreement that we have to build in. But we wanted to kind of give a sense of all the moving parts that the planning department and the manager's office will be working with you and with DEW on to make sure that we keep checking the boxes as this is kind of clicking along. And along the long term, at the bottom, we still need to secure the rights for a second access to the site. So this we've talked about maybe going through Saban's pasture. That would be something we would have to be building in. Installing the traffic signal at Country Club Road and Route 2, if and when it's warranted. Right now, looking at what is in the phase one, so the construction through 2030, it doesn't look like it would warrant a traffic light yet. We are going to do the engineering and prep the site for it. Whenever it's warranted, it will be done because it's going to be required to. But we just wanted to point out, at some point in the long term, that could come into play, and the pump station. So, and I think I'll just jump really quick, if you want, into the brownfield discussion, then we could come back to the path if you want to. So I just wanted to put out for the public and for you on the council, just to see, we hear a lot about the mismanagement of the brownfield pieces. And so I just wanted to go through and show a number of maps. These are the test sites. All those yellow dots and red dots are all the sites that were tested. In this case, this was for arsenic. And you'll notice there are only a handful of little red circles that are in there. Those red circles are the greens of the former golf course. And that's arsenic. This is lead. You notice a lot of the same areas. This is mercury. And this is heptachlor epoxide. So you'll notice they're all the same areas. And so what we wanted to make sure you understand when you hear a lot about the brownfields, we have these areas in there that are squares. Those are areas that were for the feast farm and were tested. And so you can see the feast farm has been tested, and they did not test positive. They had special testing that was done in those areas. And those were also came back okay. When we talk about, or when you hear about, we're exposing the public to stuff because we're burning the Christmas trees up there, because we're burning Christmas trees on brownfields. These are the clean parts of the brownfields. Our work with the state says we can't do anything on those areas that are the greens. We need to wait until we can get a corrective action plan for those. These other places, we have approval for what's called the soil management plan. We still have to report to the brownfield division. We still have to go and contact them before we do any work, and we get approval. But it's a faster approval process because these areas have already been cleared. So a number of things that we do, burning Christmas trees, we put in the water lines, there are a number of things that have happened. I just want to make sure it was clear to you that this is why we say it's on the greens, because you can see how many places were tested and came back clean. And only the places that were in the green have those contamination issues. And so we are, in the planning department, we are working with CVRPC. They have experience in brownfields. I have experience in brownfields. And Stone really has experience in brownfields. The folks we're working with right now are very, very experienced. And yeah, we are in conformance with the requirements for the brownfield cleanup. So we just want to take a moment to kind of make sure this comes up a lot. You hear a lot about it. I just wanted to at least come back and say, these are the areas. Once you see on the map and you see how many testings were done and how many are clean, you kind of get a sense of, oh, okay, there actually was quite a lot of work done to make sure that people were going to be safe. And I'll leave it to turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a lot of clarification. And I know I've had these questions. I'm sure many others have too. Are there other questions from council? Councilor Doyle.
Yeah, Mike, thanks a lot for doing this. I really appreciate the communication on it and the clarity that you're providing. You know, another thing that we kind of hear a lot about and that I don't really understand is the CBDG DR funding is HUD money, and the idea of a choice limiting action. And there's just so many things here that have to get done. How do you avoid choice limiting actions, or what is a choice limiting action in this context, and how are you kind of navigating that situation?
I mean, a lot of these we have to follow through with the folks at Commerce and Community Development, ACCD, to make sure that everything is following the right process. It is a complicated process because it's very clear the rules for the infrastructure project. Putting those utilities underground, under Route 2 and under Country Club Road is really clear because that's where the money is being spent. Where the rules get gray is we have to build these units to meet the housing requirement for those funding, which is on a different site, but they're not getting any money from the federal government for that. So there's this large gray area that we just have to keep going back and checking with. We applied with a very clear description of our project. We're going to do this infrastructure and we're going to build this housing. And they are very aware of our process. They pay attention to what's going on. So we rely a lot on their legal advice and legal opinions. So we check in with them quite a bit to make sure that when something comes up, like signing a development agreement with DEW, we will go back and check with them to go through and say, is this an issue or is it not? They've known about it and they haven't raised it as an issue, but sometimes it's important to go and put it right on their plate and say, we want you to say it's not an issue. It doesn't look like it should be an issue because what matters is this expenditure. You can't expend federal dollars. Well, we're not expending any federal dollars to build that housing. So it shouldn't, but again, we double check with them. Same with the environmental assessment. With the environmental assessment that we put out the RFP for, we had two very different proposals that came back. And we just put that up and say, all right, these should have been very similar. We're asking for the exact same product with the exact same federal requirements. They should be very similar. They're not. We send them to the federal, we send them up to the state, they review it, they come back to us and say, this one's correct on this one's correct on this one. You should republish this to make sure that all the parties have the same information and can have a fair process. So we work a lot very closely with our partners.
Councilor Cohen?
Thanks, Mike.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
No, he's done. He said thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So we talk about the demand from community to be involved this process. So some people were talking about maybe having some kind of forming a community group. Is there any plan about this?
For which part?
For the development agreement process, especially they wanna be included with the what types of housing they wanna see there.
So the development agreement process is your council's process, and you had appointed a committee to work on that. And I think
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy
manager's
to,
gonna
jump in. There will be a number of public touch points throughout all of these steps. Maybe not design and permitting, but most of these steps will have public touch points on them. For example, the development agreement will come back to you all for adoption, to which it will be available to the public for public review for them to weigh in and provide you all with comments on. Similarly, there are steps in this process that have to go to the Development Review Board, which I imagine will have a number of public hearings. These projects are much bigger than just a single hearing in front of that board for them to participate in. Similarly, people are weighing in on the Tier 1A process and how that's affecting Country Club Road at the state land use review board as well. And then, all these little things about even who we choose in bids, which firms we go with construction, like those are all publicly available for members of the public to weigh in and provide input to you all on. And so there will be touch points with you, and what are not decision points will be conversations in like work session presentations like this, where we're bringing you back the design elements and saying, does this make sense for this project? So that's where I think a lot of the clarity on all this for the public and their opportunities to help iterate the process come in.
Yeah. Thank you. So I was asked this question. That's why I'm asking. As Mike said, oh, you appointed a committee or whatever people to do this. And some of the residents were asking why, like, not we are being included. So maybe it will be good to put in your weekly report, Kelly, just like this is the steps, and in the steps we want to hear from you, something like that. So some clarification will be great to provide to the community members who will be interested in an approach to me and ask what can they do. Thanks.
And I'll just also say, I mean, there's a lot of interest in the success of this project. You know, Mike and I participated in a kickoff meeting with various agencies of the state who wanted to hear, you know, essentially this, like, where are you at in these processes? What are you meeting these standards required for the grant? Please explain how and when. You know, so there's a lot of collaboration on making sure that we are getting all of the boxes correctly checked, making sure that we're vetting any clarifying questions with them. So it's, you know, just to sort of let you know that those conversations are also happening as this process is ongoing. And there's really a lot of broad interest at the state level in seeing that this is a success.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this agenda item?
Yeah.
Mr. Whitaker, you have 2 minutes?
3.
You have 2 minutes.
So it's clear that you want to stick your head in the sand and not untangle the misrepresentations you just heard and you've been hearing. The NEPA trigger was the 500,000 we received from FEMA back in 2024 for not putting the trailers up there. So since then, every soil disturbance that we've allowed to happen, we've let Alex run roughshod over that property with excavators, and he dug in a greenhouse recently after explicit warning that would derail. So Mike just represented that the other areas were clean. No area of this has been deemed clean. Those were the areas that were tested, and the testing methodology they did was take 30 samples, blend them together, and then measure the contaminants in that. That's not how you are able to define any area where you can grow food. So the phase 2 report came back. It didn't say any area was clean. It said you need to do more testing before you do anything. And we ignored that. We've been growing food and feeding it to the seniors. And I think that's unconscionable. ACD explicitly put in the grant agreement that no developer agreement can be signed until environmental clearance is gained, which is, so Stone Environmental wrote to Mike Miller and said, we're not going to get this brownfield cleaned up until 2030. But that was based on testing going on this past spring. And there is no work plan yet for Stone's next phase of work. Once the work plan is done, it takes another 30 days with EPA and another 60 days with environmental conservation before that work can even continue. So that work is now in 2027. And if Stone's prior schedule said 2030, that logically says that we're not getting clearance till 2031. So the whole barcode graph is a bunch of either made up, intentionally misrepresenting, or just misunderstandings.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Whitaker. Thank you. Thank you. Your time has expired.
And you really don't want to know.
Thank you. All right. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak on this topic? Anyone on Zoom? All right. Public comment is closed at this time. There's no motion to be made. There's no decision to be made. Any final questions from council? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker, for your counter presentation. Mr. Doyle, Councilor Doyle, did you have your hand up? Go ahead before we move on.
I did. I just wanted to really briefly just kind of echo something that Kelly was talking about. You know, that a project like this that has multiple federal streams of funding in it is going to have like numerous checks and balances, right? It's a complicated project. There's going to be lots of pivot points and turns along the way. But I think with, when I worked at USDA, we used to say that, people used to say, oh, federal funding comes with so much red tape. I prefer to call it robust federal oversight, right? And that provides assurance to the public that a job is going to get done and it's going to get done right. Because of those folks either at ACCD or at the agencies that they're working with at the federal level that are providing that level of oversight. And so I think just for the public that has concerns about this, they should recognize the fact that it is a complicated project. There's definitely going to be changes, but I also think we can have a degree of confidence in our staff that are clearly experienced in this realm, and in the partners that we're going to be working with that are going to be holding us accountable.
All right, thank you for that. All right, and with that, we'll wrap up this item. We'll move on to item number 12, which we did not pull from the agenda. So Councilor Sheridan, do you want to tee this up for us?
Sure. I am gonna pull this from the agenda. What happened was two members of the advisory board approached me to put this on a council agenda. So I do that when citizens do approach me. And when the rest of the board found out, they said, we have not voted on this as a board. And they asked that it be discussed in their next meeting and they can vote on it as a board. So their next meeting will not be till like September 11th or something like that.
All right, the board, you mean the advisory board at the
Yeah,
senior center?
yeah.
Thank you.
Of which I'm your council representative. And so I'm going to poll this at this point. It probably will be back sometime in late September, depending on what they vote. So at this time, they didn't show up, so we're not ready to move forward on this. So
Okay,
we can save some time.
great, thank you. And in any case, I don't think there was a decision point for us to be able to make tonight at any rate. So we've held that item. We're moving on now to item number 13, committee appointments. It's 9:33. There we have two committee appointments. There are two vacancies and two applicants. I wish that their names were a little bit easier for me to pronounce, so I'm going to apologize in advance if I say these names incorrectly. But first up, and we'll take these one at a time. Do you need to add anything to this, Manager Curry, or we just move right into it? Okay, great. So for the Public Art Commission, which if we recall from I think it was the last meeting, there are 7 spots, 6 were filled, 1 was vacant. And so if we were to appoint Jenny Belotsakovsky, hopefully I got that right, Jenny B, to the Public Art Commission, then we would have a full roster. I don't see her in Zoom. If you are there, give us some indication, but we've also reviewed the application. Does council have any clarifying questions? Okay, is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this topic?
What is the term?
What's that?
The term?
Oh, what is the term?
Is it in there?
2 years.
2 years?
If there's no discussion and no public comment, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move the appointment of Jenny B.
Okay.
The Public Arts.
Okay, so we have an appointment and a second.
Second.
So is there any discussion or debate on this topic? Sorry, I'm flipping between windows to try and keep my eyes on everyone. All right, all in favor of appointing Jenny Berlotzer-Kofsky to the Public Arts Commission, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Sorry.
Okay, Councillor Costello is going to abstain for understandable reasons. We'll take a roll call. Councillor Cohn.
Yes.
Councillor Sheridan.
Yes.
Councillor Alfano.
Yes.
Councillor Brown.
Yes.
Councillor Doyle.
Yes.
Sorry, I skipped right over you, Paul. Councillor Costello. Abstain. All right, we have 5 yeses and 1 abstention. Thank you, Jenny, for your willingness to serve. We also have for the Complete Streets Committee, Mary D. Diet. Do you know how to say this? Again, I apologize for not knowing how to pronounce these names, but I Again, there are 9 seats and there's currently 1 vacancy. Like the Public Arts Commission, this would round out the roster. Are there any clarifying questions or concerns from council? Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this agenda item? Is there a motion to appoint?
So moved.
Okay, Counselor Sheridan moves to appoint,
Second.
Mary. Okay, Counselor Alfano, seconds. Any discussion or debate on this topic? We'll go straight to roll call vote. I'll start with you, Counselor Costello.
Abstain.
Abstain. Counselor Alfano.
Yes.
Counselor Sheridan.
Yes.
Counselor Cohn.
Yes.
Counselor Doyle.
Yes.
Counselor Brown.
Yes.
We have 5 yeses and 1 abstention. Thank you very much, Mary, for your willingness to serve on the Complete Streets Committee. Thank you, everyone. Any other comments before we move on? Seen twitching? No. Okay. We're moving on to item number 14, the homelessness update. It is currently 9:37. Manager Curry.
Yes. Okay, so I am actually relying on some of Matt Jelasik's work on this. In the intervening week, I was on vacation, but there are 2 things I just would like to bring an update on. And one, was reported in the paper recently at Jesse Jacobs building that is on the corner of State and Bailey that he is looking to lease. Capstone has taken a potential interest in investigating and exploring whether that could be a viable location for a 24/7 shelter space. And there's a lot of moving pieces with this because it was damaged in the flood, and Capstone is investigating kind of what the upgrade costs would be and remediation costs would be relative to that. They have concerns just about their funding model. And so what they're asking the city to explore, consider, which is very premature at this point. I don't have a presentation for you to think through at this time, but is whether the city would participate by holding a master lease that they would then sublet from in order to account for the fact that their funding is generally comes through for 1-year periods for a portion of the year. So the way that we're kind of starting to talk about that is, could their funding be enough to stretch out over the 12-month period, even though they only get paid out for it in 7 months out of the year to then cover, the expense of a sublease from us as a master lessor. So there's just a lot happening there, but it's, it could potentially be a good spot if we can overcome some of these hurdles. We're trying to figure out what would the sort of critical failure paths be if there are things we just can't overcome. Matt has identified that there is $100,000 potentially in our housing revolving loan fund, which is a fund that's separate from the housing trust fund that has been, repaid from projects that we have supported over the years and is potentially sitting there to support something like this. So again, we're exploring this right now. We'll come back with a baked plan and proposal for you to start considering should the pieces start to fall more appropriately into place. Additionally, as we have created conditions for operation of an emergency winter shelter downstairs again this year, but have not received any requests to do that at this point yet. There are still conversations going on with the churches on whether they will be able to host that again. So we're coming up on fall. Matt and I are very interested in not having this take everybody by surprise. And so we continue to press on and probe those conversations as well. So that's about it for my update at this point.
Any questions from council? Any comments from Councilor Cohen, go ahead.
Just a general question. Have you or the city staff observed any change, improvement after doing all this work? And we are having updates almost every 2 weeks.
Yeah. I do think that there is a stronger collaboration among partners than there was previously in the past. You know, we're having regular conversations. It's not, things are not falling off for a month or months at a time and then trying to pick back up and reconvene groups. So I think that that has been a strength. I think the situation table continues to be a meaningful collaboration where, you know, folks can get referred for support and assistance. You know, we have not had as many encampments reported this summer than I think we did last summer, or maybe that were expected this summer. I think that we are hearing that there are some new folks to town that are becoming on the radar. If you read the, you know, the police press releases that come out, like they're definitely dealing with kind of a heightened level of violent interactions with some of the unhoused, with some serious assaults that have happened. So I think maybe in some ways, yes, but not in total, probably.
Can I add one more thing? So if it doesn't take too much time, maybe quarterly, checking like every 3 or 4 months, checking with homeless community and also downtown businesses, if they see or feel or observe any changes, good or bad. So we can just like go back and check our updates or all the work you've been doing. I think it is important to hear from them.
Yeah.
And not like we are doing all these things and a year later, oh, but actually if you could do this, like it will, no, like every 3 or 4 months, how is it going? Do you need anything different? I think it will be great if you could.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Sheridan.
I'd like to address her
Yes, go ahead, please.
First of all, we did have a homeless committee meeting, and I did bring up the violent episodes. In a span of less than a month, we had, I think, 7 pretty violent episodes. 1 did not involve homeless. 5 involved homeless on both sides. 2 involved either a homeless person administering the violence or getting it. So, and I brought this up, and I want to say that I don't think most of the committee stands behind a comment that was made by one of the committee members that, well, this is to be expected. And personally, I don't expect violence just because you're homeless, or just because you're drunk, or just because you're high. I don't think those are excuses for violence. And so I would just like to say that I don't think the majority of the people felt that way in the committee. I mean, we don't like violence. It happens, but it was a bad month. And so I wanted us to talk about it. And that, you know, it's sad that that was a comment. The other thing is I went to the MBA meeting where half of their topic was on this. And they definitely said that, you know, there are issues with hurting their businesses, and their thoughts were, we need more police officers. They were proposing at least 5 more to stretch it out to 22. So I went to Tanya just to kind of get some feel for that. And I said, it's got to be at least $500,000.
Tanya Chambers, the HR director. you're talking
Yes,
about.
and
Thank you.
sorry. And she said, oh, no, you're talking much more than $500,000. So, you know, it's an expensive fix if we go that. I mean, but that's kind of what they're looking for, just to let you know. It doesn't mean that that's what we have to do or anything like that, but they're seeing the violence, and it is, you know, it was I mean, yes, it was a hot month, and heat like that we had can tend to make tempers rise and everything. But I do not feel like homelessness is an excuse for violence.
I'll just add, without disputing anything that you've just said, also being at the MBA meeting for sure, the things that you said were voiced by businesses, were voiced by some businesses, but the business community themselves, like the community at large, doesn't all line up behind a single view. So there are definitely folks that were, the one thing that I did hear that was expressed, and I'm not trying to speak for the business community, but the one thing that I did hear that I felt like was not disputed was that the behaviors that we see on the streets do have an economic impact on our businesses, and that is their livelihood, and that is their reason for being there. And so sometimes that is challenging. They didn't all agree on what was the root cause or what were the solutions, but for sure, some of the folks did suggest that more policing would be desirable in their eyes, for whatever that's worth. Other counselors or Manager Curry?
I just might comment, sometimes those opinions that form really take hold, like I continue to hear about concern of using the bike path. And, we had a camp on the bike path very far down, but we have otherwise, for the majority of the summer, not received a lot of complaints about impactful activity happening on the bike path. So I think that sometimes when an experience really takes root, it's hard to overcome that. And it just maybe has to be part of the larger, part of how we move beyond this, or how we demonstrate successful strategies, is getting people back on the bike path, and showing that it is a viable place to go and feel safe to use.
Yep. I'm there every day. Just Manager Curry, while you're talking about what's recently been going on, we also hear some, that people are being told to move along. What has been the situation with encampments being taken down in the recent weeks and months?
We have had one recently where an encampment was under the Granite Street Bridge, and had made connection with street outreach, and there was a lot of trash flowing over and into the bridge. And so those folks did move along, and we had to go clean up what was left behind.
And what was the cost to clean that up?
I don't know. I think it's $800 a visit.
Okay. All right. So it's not as though people by the hundreds are being moved along. Okay. Any other questions from council? Any member of the public like to speak on this topic? Mr. Whitaker.
Steve Whitaker again. I marvel at some of the comments that I hear, because from the homeless folks' perspective, the behaviors in this room have added to their hopelessness and desperation. The impactfulness, buzzwords, the absolute neglect. For 3 years, we've done nothing to restore these 2 basement bathrooms. A porta potty doesn't cut it out back for people who have to wash themselves so they don't get diseased or chafed. And no one wants to discuss how many people have we displaced, and on what authority did we do that? What ordinance supports displacing people off of public land? You don't have one. You just are lying about it. Okay. Why don't you want to talk about requiring Kelly to write that plan that says the city plan? She will write. Okay. Read the city plan. She will write a plan that provides safe places to camp and public hygiene. How do we just keep not talking about that? You're watching the clock. You just want to, yeah.
That's part of my job.
I look forward to your departure from the council, because we'll start to get things done.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Whitaker. Anyone else from the public like to speak on this topic? Okay. Anything else from council? All right, we're going to close this topic. We're going to move on to item number 15, the consent agenda. It is 9:50. If anyone's wondering why I keep saying that, is because a lot of folks are watching this on playback. There may be transcriptions or AI, so I just say those words into the record to make it easier for everybody to find data that they're looking for. So on to the consent agenda. no one requested to pull anything off of the consent agenda. I would like it if we would take it formally as a motion to adopt the consent agenda and do it that way rather than by unanimous consent, especially because Councilor Costello is brand new and is unlikely had a chance to review all of these items in the details. Do we have such a motion?
I'll move the consent agenda.
Okay, Councilor Sheridan moves to accept the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any debate or discussion on any of these items? Seeing none, do we take public comment on the consent agenda? We haven't been. Is there any a member of the public that would like to comment on the consent agenda? It has happened. Seeing none, we're opening and closing the opportunity for that. We'll go straight to we'll go to a roll call. I'll start with you, Councilor Cohn. How do you vote on accepting the consent agenda as proposed?
Yes.
Councilor Sheridan?
Yes.
Alfano?
Yes.
Costello? Abstain. Councilor Brown?
Yes.
Councilor Doyle?
Yes.
All right, 5 yeses, 1 abstention, no nos. The consent agenda passes.
Franny, can you please bring that to me?
Thanks, everyone. And now we're on to item number 16. It is 9:52. Item number 16 is the city manager performance review. It was proposed that we enter executive session if there does anyone need to tee this thing up? Kelly, do you want to say anything about it? Probably not. This is where Adrian would have said things, so.
So it's part of the performance evaluation process that you all adopted in July, which included, the metrics that you would like to be tracking and the timelines of which to have a review. This is the 6-month review. I started on February 17th. And so just a few days shy of that. So that is the point of this today. And I look forward to your feedback.
Great. Is there a motion to enter executive session for this? It is a personnel matter. We do not need a finding on this. This would be very similar to the executive session that we entered to discuss the appointment for Council 1 seat. If anyone would like, I believe I would entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss the city manager's performance review pursuant to VSA 313A3. Is there such a motion? Councilor
So moved.
So, all right.
Just-
All right.
just
Is
broke
there a
up, yeah.
second? I'll repeat it all. So I think that'll work.
Second.
All right, second. So the motion is to enter executive session to discuss the city manager's performance review pursuant to 1 VSA 313A3. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimously passes. At 9:54, we are in executive session. Shall we use the same Teams meeting link as before, or? I'm curious about this. Using Zoom, are we unable to just make a breakout room and only invite the participants? Oh, and sorry, do we need to say that we're inviting the city manager into this meeting?
We do.
We do. Sorry, it's getting late. Somebody refresh me on how we need to do this.
I guess if you want to be technical,
We need to redo it.
you could move to amend after the fact. That's allowed under Robert's rules.
Okay,
You could move to amend the previous motion to include.
So I will move to amend the previous motion to include city manager Curry.
okay. Is there we need seconds and votes on this,
We
right?
do.
So is there a second to accept this amendment?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, so amended. And now at 9:55, we're going into executive session. All right. It's 10:37. We're back in the room. We need a motion to exit executive session if we're to do so.
I'll move.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
All right, we have a second. All in favor of exiting executive session, say aye.
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 Did we lose Ben? Counselor Doyle, are you still here? I know he's out of town. We may have lost him for this. So any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so with 5 votes for and 1 person absent, we're out of executive session. And I think I might have said this, it's 10:38. All right, we're moving on to other business. Is there any other business? Great. City Council reports. We'll start with you, Councilor Cohn, if that's okay.
Yeah. So I just want to share a couple of things. First thing, when there was a water incident on Elm Street and Evelyn announced it on Front Porch Forum, I received very positive feedback. People really like it because she explained what happened, what is the next thing, and when more public information is coming. So they really like, and they told me they are really grateful, and I'm thanking to Evelyn for that. It was very nice to hear that. And the second thing, I was at the City Hall yesterday, and I know we have our ADA report, and it shows lots of things we are doing, but I observed that people who were using wheelchair, which one of them was the lieutenant governor candidate, they couldn't really use their wheelchairs because of the cement structure. There are, I don't know what's happened, maybe because of the weather or other things, there are gaps. So it was really difficult for them, and they want to go to behind to use the accessible like door and everything, but they have to come to the sidewalk to do that. And it was so difficult. And I was like, a couple of times, I thought, should I help them? But, you know, they are strangers. So I don't know what to do. And I was recommended one of the people who use a wheelchair, they want me walk town with them and record. So if I do this, maybe I can invite you and we can see like which is working, which sidewalks are not working, like, because when we look at in a bigger picture, we see that everything is going well, which is great. And we do a lot to do things better. But when you are using your wheelchair, it changes everything for you. So if I decided to do that little video thing, I will invite, and whoever is interested in, you can join me, and then we can just like see how we can improve more. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sheridan.
Oh, I'll just mention, the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission had their kind of dinner and talk that you were at, Mark, and Carrie was at for a while. I stayed for the whole thing. I found it interesting to hear what the problems are in the small communities compared to us. Big difference. They did a nice job, and there was talk for them to do that semi-annually. But I enjoyed it for the second straight year.
Great, thank you. Councilor Alfano?
No report.
No report. All right. Councilor Brown.
Yeah, thanks. A little while ago, Mayor, you sent out an email about VLCT was looking for people to serve on their policy committee. And I responded to you and I said that that'd be interesting. And so I ended up following through on that, and I am now on the policy committee for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And what that entails is spending the next like 6 weeks or so looking at the past legislative agendas and the drafts that the staff have come up with and giving input and helping to refine those. So it's and they're we're just going one section at a time. I would love to hear from folks if anybody has any input or any thoughts they want to share about what should be in there. We had one meeting where we talked about, I forget what they call it, but it's basically like sort of operational stuff. And making adjustments to public records laws was very important to everybody there, as I know it is to folks here. And then, so I'd be happy to share what the drafts are that are coming up, the sections that are coming up, if anyone is interested, and just, pass on any of your thoughts to the rest of the committee.
Thank you. Councillor Doyle.
Thanks, Carrie. I just want to say, I think that's awesome. Like, thank you so much for doing that work. It's super important. Just also really want to welcome Paul. Paul, thanks for your leadership here. Appreciate you stepping up to serve. The only other report item that I have is just people might have heard about it if they were interested, that the 87 State Street Local Development Corporation did place a winning bid on the federal building at 87 State. We are still waiting for GSA, Government Service Administration, to accept that bid, but we don't have any reason to believe that they won't. And, what that means is that this local development corporation, which is a nonprofit that Kelly and I both serve on, will really just have an opportunity to kind of shape what happens to that site, starting with doing a real assessment of the environmental contamination that we know is in the building, and trying to understand what the cleanup costs would be and what a path forward could be that could really benefit the community and get that property operating in its highest and best use for the community. So it's a really long road ahead, but really exciting step that, I think we have an opportunity to do something great in the city.
All right, thank you, Councillor Doyle. Clerk's report?
Yeah, I just want to thank the election volunteers. That was one of the smoothest elections, our yesterday election, that I have been involved in a long time. I even got to, I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but I got to do so and have fun at the same time. So that doesn't usually happen. It was terrific. Yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. City Manager's report.
Try to be quick. So as you know, we are in the throes of construction season with Public Works, with a number of paving projects, and we're waiting for the final project calendar for the launch of the Lower State Street project. And so this is the one where we're attempting the pipe bursting to replace those pipes down there. And so we will keep you all informed. We definitely have some lessons learned about building in communication, I think, as part of further ahead from DPW as part of the project planning, because today the water shutdown notice did not give a lot of heads up time. And so I think we can build in better timing for that. And what else? We are moving forward on kind of the City Hall rebuild project. So we have received our RFPs for the consultants that are going to help us shepherd through that grant management and design process. And so we've narrowed it down to the one that we're going to offer the contract to. That will come back to you all, obviously, for approval. We are having a check-in with our design team who have done the initial design phases, Bob Stevens and Associates, tomorrow, to kind of continue moving that forward. So that's exciting. And we'll come back with something similar to what Mike presented with the City Hall project, with kind of the calendar ahead of the different milestones that we will be moving towards and tracking. The actively working with the recruitment team for the police chief. And so I just want to heads up, if you haven't heard from them yet, they are reaching out to counselors to get input to help develop the position profile for that. And I hope you all have the chance to speak. It will probably be Julie Scribner that calls you. Paul, I will add your contact to that list if you don't mind. They're seeking as much input as possible. So that is great. And then, as you know, we have had a resignation at the senior center. And so we are figuring out strategies right now to fill in for coverage for that director position. And a lot of staff have put their heads together with the advisory council to come up with a plan in the immediate interim to keep the building staffed and functioning and launch the registration for fall programs. And then one thing I just wanted to sort of put in to get the wheels spinning with each of you all is I want to propose potentially finding time to do a separate meeting for a mini retreat around the strategic plan check-in. You did a multi-year plan. I think it would be good to check in on that and where we're at with the goals, if there's any additional goals that we want to add into that or amend or edit for the next forthcoming year in advance of budget. And then also spend some of that time talking about the local options tax and policy that this board wants to create around how those revenues will be dedicated. So I will follow up in our one-on-one meetings with each of you all, but to get input on that so we can help shape a productive conversation around those things. And then actively trying to fill all of our vacant positions. And there's some great opportunity there. So I will leave it at that unless there's questions on anything I didn't raise from anyone.
I'd just point out that there are 5 Wednesdays in September. So if we're looking for a place to add an extra, that September may be a good opportunity.
Okay. Thank you.
So to sort of pull back to sort of where we started from at the top, thanking people for their ability, for their willingness to step up, and also just sort of celebrating our town. There is a ribbon cutting for Cornerstone Caregiving tomorrow at 4, and I was planning to be there, but I have a conflict and cannot. So if there's anyone available to go, I know that they would appreciate any council, or city presence just to be there in support of new businesses opening. I missed the Vulcan Gym one, which was this past Saturday, but as I'm learning, council doesn't have a lot of power. The mayor has even less. The one thing we can do with no permission necessary is to just cheerlead and find reasons to celebrate in town. So that's been a good part of my job. Mr. Whitaker told us that Mr. Bellini took a fall on the back steps. So Dave, if you're listening, wish you a get well soon, a speedy recovery. Thinking of you. I also want to thank Paul Costello for stepping up and filling in this role. But I also especially want to thank Keith and Megan and Sean, who we did not seat at this time, but just that willingness to serve, give of their time and their energy for no personal gain and just benefit to the community at large is something that we really need. So I really appreciate the 3 of you stepping up. Also want to say, congratulations to everyone who came out on top in yesterday's primaries, but also say, again, a special thank you for the folks who put in all of the energy that it takes to run a campaign that were not successful in this bid. Your efforts are also very much appreciated. And I am talking to you, Palin. I'm talking to Ali Richards. I'm talking to Ryan McClure. I'm talking to Gabe Lachiness. These are the folks that were on various tickets here that did not prevail, but we know did put in a lot of effort. And so thank you for your willingness again. And thank you, Kelly, for doing such a great job and leading our city. We've just had a review. We won't go into it much, but I just want to say thank you again. All right. And with that, unless there's an objection, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Seeing no objections, this meeting of City Council is adjourned at 10:51 p.m. on Wednesday, August 12th, 2026.